Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
On this special night of Spaced Out Radio, my name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate all of you tuning in as we are going to break down the UFO hearings in Washington, D.C. earlier this morning. Was it good? Was it bad? Was it unimpressive? Was it another nothing burger? We're going to find out. We got an impressive panel, probably the best panel of the day, talking about this subject. We got Dr. Bob McGwier, a.k.a. Science Bob. We have Dan Warren from Fifth Pillar of Emphasis. He was actually there at the conference. We got Random Guy from MUFON. We got Bob Spearing, and from UAP Studies Podcast, Louis Borges. Later on, Melinda Leslie and Tim Seanor will join us. But first, let's say hello to all of you. All right, we got Sugar Britches in the gold medal position. Race Fan with a silver. Raymond L with a bronze medal tonight. Hi, Emmy Tong, Sundance Kids, and Kurt M. Good to see you all. Peppa H. Good to have you back. Brown Dwarf, how you doing? Les Paul Holland, nice to see you strumming. D. Cohen, Donna, Vashti Impaler, Addie Overbay, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you. Laura Lobbs, nice to see you. Nancy Hayes is here. Nancy will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Samantha Hazelwood Gray, Lisa C., Space Cow, Pat Toohey, Human Carl, a great veteran of the United States Air Force. We love you, Human Carl. Thank you for your service. And here we go, continuing on with the roll call. We have Brad Ford, Sweet Donna Spencer, Obie Flett, and Monica. Hi, Stephanie Blankenship and Ann B., Dave Walters, Robert Lamont, W. David Page. Nice to see you all. Pixie Lara Gizmo. And who else do we got here? Let's scroll on down. Ozzy Sue, good to see you all. Sibylla Irwin, nice to have you back. Thank you for joining us. The lovely Kira, always good to see you. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Pam Harris, nice to have you here. Dark Protocol, good to see you. And let's check it on out. Paramarv is back, and so is Troy Dudley. Nice to have you here. Let's continue on as we do our roll call. Jessica Tim Pironi, welcome to SOR Chat. Apollo 11, good to have you back. Apollo 11 will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Slow Motion. And who else do we have? Let's see. James Weston, thank you for coming on in. Candy Wolf, nice to see you. And who else do we have here? Michael Fontaine, thank you for joining us. La 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 la. Bright, good to see you, my dear. By the way, great picture on Facebook earlier today. And Tim Othman, nice to have you here. Welsh Hammer, thank you for joining us. Lala, thank you so much for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you. Let's get the radio side going so we can get Bill WD-40 into the chat room to lube us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show smooth. Lubed up, nice and smooth. Just slide on in there. Ivan 007, Sensational Sherry, nice to see you both. And Blake Falbo, welcome to SOR Chat. Nina Williams, good to see you. And who else do we have here? And Janae, Zen1, Zora, nice to have you here. Strangeland, good to have you back. Dutch UFOs, thanks for coming on in. And Kevin Clark, good to see you. Hey there, Gong Show. War Criminal, nice to have you both here. Hi, Chris little break. Teen, nice to see you. And DAY Song, thank you for coming on in. And who else do we have here as we are running out of time? We got 30 seconds. Can we get it all in? Pam Harris and Lily Pond, good to see you. Ozzy, oi, oi to you. Sparkles on Facebook. Luscious Jules, good to see you both. And Hadley, thanks for coming on in. I think we're caught up. Johnny, how are you? All right, Super Chat is open. Just be like Lala. And the store is open on our website, spacedoutradio.com. Horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. You'll pay me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out and Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a power show for you tonight. We got a great panel breaking down all the latest UFO, UAP news out of Washington, D.C. today. Then in hour number 3, we're going to head to the swamp. After that, we are going to bring you the UFO report. Well, it is that time once again where we head over to the Pentagon to find out what is actually going on with UFOs and UAP. Senator Kristen Gillibrand called this meeting just a couple of weeks ago. We only found out about it last week, that today was the day they were going to go public. Why? Well, there were questions about what UAP are. There were questions about the budget. And so this is how it broke down. They went into private meetings. We do not know what was discussed then. Then it turned over to the public, where Senator Gillibrand literally met with Sean Kirkpatrick, the head of Arrow, and it was like a soap opera script coming to real life. The good news is we got a power panel for you tonight of UAP, UFO specialists out there, and we're going to introduce you to it. We have Louis Borges from the UAP Studies podcast. From MUFON, we have Bob Spearing. From our science area, we have Dr. Bob McGwier, a.k.a. Science Bob. From Fifth Pillar of Emphasis, Dan Warren, who is actually at the hearings live today. And, of course, our regular random guy who is here as well. And, Dan Warren, I want to start with you on this one, if you don't mind. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Dan, you were there. What was the mood like? And set it up for us who only saw what was on camera.
So if I had to describe the mood, I would say it was the opposite of tense. I thought that there would be tension in the air between the senator and Kirkpatrick, or the senators, I should say, like I felt the first one had. But to be honest, it didn't seem that way. It seemed like they had a very cordial relationship and were comfortable with each other. And like you said, it almost felt like they knew what was about to happen. So to me, it seemed like it was a very laid back atmosphere, if I had to describe it.
For you being there, I was very surprised when they panned the camera around, Dan, and there was maybe about 15, 16 people in there, a lot of empty seats around this giant, beautiful wooden table that on one end you had Kristen Gillibrand, on the other end you had Sean Kirkpatrick. Were you shocked by the lack of people there?
On both sides of that conversation, yeah. I thought that all the senators would be there from the Emerging Threats and Capabilities Subcommittee, to be honest, because it's out there in public. Their names are associated with it. I thought they would have been there. But yeah, I'm also surprised that there weren't more people that were trying to get in from the public to support this effort. When I think about how successful storming Area 51 was as far as rallying up the troops, I'm shocked that we don't have more people coming to Washington to support the senators and their efforts, or the congressmen and their efforts to try to bring more transparency to this issue. So I thought there'd be a long line of people outside waiting to get in, and that every seat would be full in there. So I was shocked as well, which one of my hopes is that by me coming here, and I've documented my process, I'll put a video together and put it out there to just hopefully make it so that everybody else in the area knows that the next time one of these comes around, yes, you can come and you can participate in something that could be historic. So if I can do it, you can do it too. So that's one of my hopes from my trip up here this time around.
I got to ask, why did you feel you needed to be there?
Because I've been basically a keyboard warrior for several years, and I make content. I'm involved. I have conversations on podcasts, but this was my first chance to actually become part of the process, to be involved in something that I think is important, something that if I'm going to be a UAP activist, I need to get out there and do it, instead of just sitting back and typing and talking and sitting in my daughter's room making videos for all of you guys to watch.
Well, I want to ask you one more question before I start bringing in the rest of the panel here. Overall, were you happy with what you saw? Never mind the entire experience, because no matter what, the experience always makes it a little bit better, Dan. But overall, when you look at everything that we saw, there was a lot of vanilla, a lot of white and beige walls that were coming out of the words of both Kirkpatrick and Gillibrand. Did you feel that it was a fair hearing, or did you feel like what many other people are feeling online, that once again we were hoping for roses and we got thorns and thistles?
So I was hoping for the equivalent of the Gillibrand that I'd seen talking to the other higher ups in Congress and demanding answers, demanding follow-up and responses. That's what I was hoping for, that she would have been more, I want to say, aggressive with the questioning. And I don't think that we got that. I felt like we got something less than that. So of course, we all want more. Of course, I wish that there had been some exciting conversations that occurred, or some more in-depth conversations about the unknowns instead of the knowns that they want to talk about in the process. But I mean, it's still a step in the right direction. It's still moving the ball forward. So I can't be completely disappointed with it. I haven't had time to go back and actually pick apart the conversation that went down to see what gems are in there, because there are some, such as what Tim McMillan pointed out, that he basically said that I don't have access to the Title 50 records, which means that he only has access to about 20% of the intelligence community's cases or information that he needs to do his job. So those are the little things that I might not even be able to pick up on when I listen to the interview again. There might be other people in the community that can help me figure out what was really important from what we just heard today.
Wonderful. Science Bob, I want to bring you in here because you have gone through this type of process before, working in Washington, D.C. for not only Virginia Tech University, but for the CIA and other programs and that you worked on as well. I'm curious, when you look at what we got today, was it just another bland painting, or was there some nuggets in there that really impressed you?
So there are some nuggets. Let me give you from top to bottom a few nuggets. We saw the Mosul orb video. And so once again, we get all the evidence we need that Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp are the official leakers for all of this. Because he brought the Mosul orb video and played it from beginning to end and confirmed that what Corbell had put out there was real. That's the first thing. Dan hit right on the money about what Tim McMillan said. I would have expected Tim not to miss it. Title 10 authorities are intelligence gathering by the intelligence community. Title 50 authorities are intelligence gathering for the purposes of force protection and empowering the armed services. So Title 50 is for combatant commands. Title 10 is for intelligence community members. So, and Dan's correct about, I think that percentage is about right, is about 1/5 as much is covered as Title 50 is. So they were hamstrung. And what it says to me is that the Pentagon is still stonewalling Arrow. They are absolutely stonewalling them. Now, look, let me explain something to people. You also heard Kirkpatrick talk about all of the exquisite assets that the United States of America has in its possession to look for, listen to, measure, etc., the UAP. But he also told you the problem. And maybe it went right over your head. Let me help it not go over your head. Each one of these assets, let's call it a spy satellite that takes pictures, is controlled by a single entity. So another asset would be controlled by a different entity. And everyone wants to think the government works all together. No. Every one of those assets is owned by an office who would kill to keep the information from any other office, because they don't want to be embarrassed by an office that does not have their budget figuring out something from their data that they should have figured out and missed. I'm just trying to explain to you the politics, the political infighting that goes on over these instruments. And for Sean Kirkpatrick to fuse all of those things into one database is going to be, and I'm telling you flat out, $100 million multi-year war before all that data comes together and can be put together in one office. And the Pentagon and DIA and CIA are going to fight, NGA, they're all going to fight over it. And it's just going to be a real work to fuse all of that together. It's bureaucratic obstacles he's having to overcome. I thought the one kind of insult was bringing a piece of evidence that was an airplane. And, I don't think any of us wanted to see an airplane. I mean, he could have just said, we found a lot of stuff that's an airplane. And my last thing was, Dave, how many times have we commented on MUFON ignoring orbs or ignoring spherical things? I mean, and especially those that emit light. And what did his chart show, which we will look at later? I'll just go ahead and point it out. 52% of all the observations that are flowing into them are spherical or orbs. MUFON has no business ignoring those reports.
And on that note, let's bring in Bob Spearing from MUFON International. Bob, you are tied to this through MUFON, and you are someone who takes a good look at a lot of the international cases that are going on around the world. And for you, I mean, obviously what happens in Washington, D.C. eventually will affect what happens with MUFON type investigations. Overall, you're thinking of everything on what went down today.
Well, I learned a new term for UFOs. They're called SCPs, somebody else's problem. I had never heard that before. And as far as what Science Bob was saying about being scripted, you and Science Bob, I think that the Chinese learned more about how compartmentalized and in disarray and worried about them we are, rather than what we learned about UAP and UFOs. All right, I thought that was very telling. I was very disappointed in how much information came out. When I started talking about the Chinese balloon, I'm saying, oh, good, they're going to mention the 3 other objects that they shot down that we know nothing about, and it never ever came up. I was blown away that we hear nothing about those other 3 objects. All right. As to Science Bob's criticism of MUFON, I'll just say this. The management at MUFON is different and more scientific oriented than it was in years past. Okay. A lot of times people say we're an amateur organization, we're a volunteer organization, and sometimes working with volunteers can be rough. But we do have astronomers and biologists and other types of scientists and forensics people on our team. A lot of our field investigators have forensic backgrounds. As far as the Chinese balloon incident went, our April issue of the MUFON Journal was specifically about what MUFON did as far as tracking spherical objects that could have been some sort of foreign asset. In particular, we went back through 3 years of our daytime videos, specifically where there were white spherical objects seen in the sky. Then we pegged them to whether or not they were close to military bases. And we came up with over 52 incidents where these white spherical objects were in close proximity to things like the SEAL base in California. So I don't think Science Bob quite got what we were doing, but the MUFON Journal for April is free to the public, and it's out all over Facebook, and you can read all of our analyses about white spherical objects.
All
And
right.
I'm a MUFON member, by the way.
I am not. But nonetheless, let's continue on because I want to get the other two members of the panel in here. Louis Borges from UAP Studies Podcast. I was really shocked to learn that Sean Kirkpatrick asked you for one of your ties before the actual hearings, because I know that there's nothing you like better than a 1985 tie. Louis,
he needed the wardrobe advice. He really did. And what's with the tie bar and the chain from the 70s? But anyway. I just wanted to say for me real quick, similar to what the other gentlemen are saying, but, to the point of UAP to SEP, someone else's problem. It almost seemed like he needs to clear these things off of his desk, get them back to the agencies they came from. And he even said during the questioning that it's his hope that you won't need an arrow down the road. This becomes automated. And to Science Bob's point, that's, $100 million in years and years and years to do that. But it just seemed very deflating. Like, really, this is supposed to be the resolution office? How is the head of something called the resolution office saying it's somebody else's problem? And not that I had high expectations from this type of hearing or the others, but I just thought that was clearly a step backwards in my mind anyways.
All right, random guy, let's bring you in here because you come at this from a civilian type of angle and as somebody who has worked in the field, not of UFOs, but for the United States Armed Forces. You watched this, you got caught up on everything. Your thoughts on what was there and what wasn't from an independent view?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, initially, I'll just say I'll save my specific analysis for later. But my general impression was I agree with the other gentleman that definitely there was some kind of rules of engagement set for this speech, for this back and forth. They clearly had, like, this is what you're going to get thrown at. And this is, I'm not saying they quote unquote, recorded or rehearsed it, but probably a general impression of what kind of questions you're going to get based on the first more secretive talk that they had. What was interesting to me was what Mr. Kirkpatrick said when he was offering things about the 5 stages of analysis and how they have the 2 different groups that do their analysis. And I think that was done to basically say, hey, look, we're being transparent here. We're following scientific methods, and therefore this stuff will be beyond reproach once it's published. But again, what was already stated, I think that I don't think they have all the data they need to execute a proper scientific method when evaluating these things. So, and then I'll also add in, because I'm me, I told you so, and nothing came of it.
No, and that's exactly it. I think nothing came of it either. But do any of you gentlemen, when you look back at this, think, what is the big secret? If we're not going to discuss it, what is the big secret regarding this UFO subject? If they're here, they're here. Why would that be top secret? Unless you're hiding technology, unless you're hiding the fact that you do have aliens, or whether you do have crash retrievals, if that's even possible. I mean, Dan, let's start with you on this one. I mean, you were there. What's the big secret that we're missing? Why can't they tell us what truly is going on?
Well, I think one of Sean's comments kind of leads me to think what I'm about to say, but he did mention that he is concerned about China and their lack of fear to progress in science and technology in a way that America is kind of hamstrung to do. So the fact that he brought that up in the hearing leads me to believe that if that's his perspective on whatever technology that they are seeing that they can attribute to China, that might be what they're concerned about overall, is other people getting a leg up on them and having advantage. Because he did sound concerned, like he had in his voice, you could tell that he was genuinely concerned about China advancing beyond the United States in certain technologies. So if you transpose that to the UFO topic, then yeah, the entire United States government is going to be very concerned about someone else getting a leg up on them. And they're going to want to hide that and prevent other people from seeing what they're doing so that they can get ahead of them. So it is a very competitive world. And I think that is one of the big reasons for the secrecy. One of them, I would say.
All right. Bob Spearing, let's go to you here. What do you think was missing as we got about 2.5 minutes to go before we go to break here at the bottom of the hour?
Well, what he just said, there are very few nuggets in the hearing, but one of the ones I picked up on was Dr. Kirkpatrick said that during the Chinese balloon incident, he was brought at night to the Joint Chiefs. Okay, so my impression is that it may possibly have been Chinese related, to the point where if the military was that concerned that they brought him in at night shortly before the shoot down the next day, that they must have thought it was something very, very important, and probably not UFOs, but something with China.
All right. Science Bob, would you concur with that?
I would indeed. And they gave us no details. I mean, they have gun camera video from those 3 shoot downs. You do not fire a $500,000 Sidewinder missile from the F-22 and not have exquisite photography for battle damage assessment and after action reporting. That's just the way it works. So it's ridiculous that they didn't even show us a picture, just a screenshot of what it is they shot down. So that is complete BS. Okay, that's number one. Number two, a large portion of the most really awesome stuff that was in the National Defense Authorization Act was Kirkpatrick being ordered to go back through history. And my guess is he got absolutely stonewalled everywhere he went, trying to talk about the nuclear missile bases, Roswell, Kenneth Arnold, and the 1952 overflight of the Capitol, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my guess is he was stonewalled. He got nowhere. And so zero mention was made of any historic data.
I would agree with that. I also would agree with the fact that, if you have 22 whistleblowers that have come out, why not tell us about them?
Well, that's one thing. But in addition to that, he said the only whistleblowers they interviewed were ones that the Congress critters sent to them, and that they didn't even have a process set up for others who wanted to come forward to sign up to testify. So they are really early in the game.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. A special panel on the UFO hearings in Washington, D.C. from UAP Studies, Louis Borges. From MUFON, Bob Spearing. From Fifth Pillar of Emphasis, Dan Warren, who is at the hearings. Dr. Bob McGwier, a.k.a. Science Bob, and our own resident random guy. We will be back on Spaced Out Radio. UFOs, UAP, whistleblowers, all next on the show. Good start, gents. Good start.
I'm going to reload a drink. I'll be right back.
No problem.
That was good.
Yeah, Science Bob, I know exactly what you're talking about with the spherical objects, all right, because they've written them off for so many years as weather balloons, and it was actually me that got them to say, hey, Go back and look at the videos for the
that's
last
good
3
news,
years.
Bob.
Yeah,
That's good news.
So.
Yeah, I mean, at the MUFON meeting that was in Colorado, I heard from a number of people that said McDonald is opposed to doing anything with orb reporting. And I just knew that that is the mistake, especially since you had this meeting today that spherical objects are 52% of the reporting.
Mm-hmm.
And especially those at night, you don't even know they're there if they're not emitting light, so they're orbs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when we went back and looked at the videos, we found so many and then compared them where the witness saw them to where there were military installations. It was astonishing.
Well, and you know, the most unbelievable cases, like up in North Dakota, where our favorite former captain had this big thing come over and shut down 10 missiles. That was an orange orb. You just can't ignore this stuff. You don't throw away data and do science.
Well, I can't ignore the dragon on your head right now.
That's good. That's good.
Dude, if you don't screen grab that.
Look at the detail in the art.
Dave, if you don't screen grab that and meme it, you're failing as a host.
Yeah. Dude,
I don't know how to screen grab. Random guys, screen grab that for me. Hold on. There we go.
Come on. Control print screen.
All right. I'm going to do my worst.
Hold on, let me change the name here first. Science.
All right.
There we go.
Hold on, I gotta wait for it to show up on the broadcast version.
There we go.
All right, we got it.
Good.
You'll be very welcome in the San Francisco Tenderloin District at any time.
Oh my goodness! I mean,
wearing that, so I'm just gonna let you know right now.
The detail in this face painting stuff she does is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, I love this.
Oh man, what can you do?
Hey, you're a good sport though. I let my daughter, put makeup on me and paint my nails every once in a while, so I understand. I understand how it goes.
I may be from the South, but I did go to an Ivy League university, so I changed stripes.
What's up, Rob G? I see you, bro.
Dan, I really love your stuff on TikTok and elsewhere.
Thank you very much, Bob.
It's really good.
And
I like your delivery. I like your narratives. It's just really good. You got talent.
Thank you. It's really nice to finally get to see you or meet you in person, Bob. We've crossed paths a few times, but it's finally time to have a conversation.
That's wonderful.
I got to meet her, like my first experience with what I'll call someone fanboying over me. I went there and there's a gentleman named Thomas Dooley, and I hope he sees this because that made my day. Like he saw me and he lit up. I was like, oh, that's a good feeling.
That's neat.
And
it
was very flattering.
I know Dooley.
Oh, you did. Super nice guy. And I just enjoyed that. That was a big experience for me. I
hope you continue to have those experiences and that you continue to do the work because it's good. It's needed.
It is. Dan, I think you're way too nice to understand the power of the medium you have created for yourself and how important that is, not only to show hosts like myself, but to the general public wanting to learn about this subject. You're the best out there. You really are.
Well, I suspect that if we poked him, I'm not asking him to, but I suspect if he poked him, he has been approached about moving on and doing bigger and better things because he's got talent. I mean, the Discovery and History and all those, they need people like Dan to improve their product.
I agree. And he's good looking too. Good looking guy. Unlike Louis there, who's still stuck in 1985 tie chains,
I don't wear the tie or the tie chain, just to clarify.
Dave has not forgiven me for shaving off my beard.
Nope. I still got the beard here. Hold on, gentlemen. We're going to get going here in about 10 seconds. Thank you to Lala Bob, Nancy, and Ed Clater for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Here we go with the second half hour. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate your listening ears. I want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We're continuing on with the news of the day of the UFO hearings over in Washington, D.C. Joining us tonight from MUFON, Bob Spearing. We got our resident random guy. We have Science Dragon, Bob McGwier here. And from Fifth Pillar of Emphasis, Dan Warren, who was actually at the hearings. And from UAP Studies, we have Louis Borges. One of the things that we just talked about right before the break was whistleblowers. And random guy, we're going to start with you on this one, because with the whistleblowers that have come out, here's my thinking as a citizen. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If they are protected in their hearings of their information that they are going to send, why can we not have their names? Why can we, or are they allowed to be kind of cut out of the information process publicly?
Well, being a whistleblower is like being an informant for the mafia. So you're granted certain protections automatically. So I could know something, or you could know something. We have families to worry about. Maybe what we have, we want to tell our truth, right? But it's like, that's not without repercussions, because as we all know, at this point in time, it doesn't matter what your take on something is, whether it's genuine, fake, propaganda, wherever you're at, 1/3 to 2/3 of the other people are going to be against you. And then of those groups, you got like 5% complete nutballs in every department. Can't take that risk with a family. So that's automatically part of anything. It's no different than like witness protection. So you're coming forward to give quality information. You need to know that your family is safe to do so. It's not just criminal prosecution. Okay. Somebody could come to me and say, hey, we're waiving everything you've ever done for the government. Speak freely. Now go in front of the camera and tell the story. I'm still going to be like, some of the things I'm going to tell you guys is going to shatter your reality. And therefore, you might think I'm reptilian alien because there's unhinged people or whatever, and I'm out to get you. And I have kids. I don't want you to know who the hell I am. And that's why that happens.
Okay. But what about the people who have already come out? Okay, there have been people like Kevin Day, like Robert Salas, who have already come out and said, yes, I was one of the ones who have been interviewed by Arrow and by the Congress people and the senators. Why not promote them? Why not put them on the pedestal to say, look, you guys have already admitted to coming out. Well, why don't you talk about it publicly?
Well, there's two sides of that story, depending on where you sit. There's the conspiracy theorist is forever and always. That's the other part of it. If you come out and say, hey, here's this guy, I mean, look at Elizon, look at anybody, name a single name that ever worked for the government that came out and gave you any information to the ufology or UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call it. Anybody that's ever contributed in any way gets scrutinized to the point where half the people think they're shills or agents or misinfo or what have you. And then the other half is, oh, these guys are legit. And then they might take bad actions with it. So I think in that case, I don't know, because I don't know these individuals you're speaking of individually, but you would have to approach them like in a personal level and figure that out. But my guess is there's probably something in the chain of custody of information they provide where somebody can call scrutiny to it, where it can make it a conspiracy. And if that happens at any point, we're back with Lazar or any of the other people, depending on who you trust, where it's like, anytime you get anybody that's in a trust me bro situation, and you lose that chain of custody of accuracy with what they're giving in a deposition, you lose it. And so they don't want necessarily to, if the government knows, hey, this guy worked here and everything he's saying is real and he came forward, his information is valid. However, he worked on that one project that's still out there and we really can't talk about that, then they cut that out of his life officially. And then everybody's like, oh, look, he had a gap there. That's where he became a shill for the government. And then you lost the whole purpose of him coming forward in the first place.
All right, let's get to UAP studies. Louis Borges. I mean, the whistleblower atmosphere. We do know names that have come out regarding this, and Kevin Day has been public about it. Robert Salas, many more. We can only speculate who has been out there. Is there a demand out there for learning who these whistleblowers are, Louis?
Absolutely. And I mean, these guys have been telling their stories, some of them for decades. Like, look at Robert Salas. In fact, we were speaking with him about a month and a half ago to come on our show, and he wanted to do his testimony first before coming on the show. So, to Science Bob's point about they're supposed to go back through history, you don't have to go back very far. These guys are willing to tell you their information. Paul Hellyer, the Canadian former defense minister, willing to talk about it. So to me, it just seemed like we all know there's so many things that could have come out, could have been discussed. Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? But they didn't. So the fact that they didn't tells us something, you know what I mean? If they had said lots, and if it was like previous hearings, it'd be a whole different story. But to everybody's point here, it seemed quite scripted, quite friendly, like everybody was wearing kid gloves. And perhaps that was because they had a preliminary meeting before, and this was just for show. I'm not too sure.
Dan Warren, you were there. Did you, was there a lot of talk about the whistleblowers behind the scenes and people you were talking to? And were any of the witnesses as whistleblowers there that you knew of?
No, they mentioned, I wrote down 24 whistleblowers were the number that I heard Kirkpatrick say. So I don't know if that's the correct number, but none of them were there. I know some, like he said, Kevin Day, Robert Salas, those guys who have given their testimony, they weren't there. No one that I am aware of was in the room. It was a bunch of us just enthusiasts that attended it with some of the media in there. But yeah, for the whistleblower testimony to start coming forward, just like RG said, I think they need to have some anonymity to feel safe, because no one wants to get doxxed is what it boils down to. Because just because you are willing to say something in a certain environment doesn't mean that you want to blast your information to the rest of the world, because you don't know what's going to come through that door once you open it. So I completely understand why people would be reluctant to tell you who has been spoken to. As much as we want it to be, we do need to respect their privacy.
Is anybody surprised here that Lou Elizondo's name hasn't come out with this as a whistleblower? Anybody? No. That one surprises me. Bob Spearing from MUFON, your take on the whistleblower aspect of this. 24 people being named to it. We don't know the names. There is secrecy behind that for whatever the reason may be, for top secret programs or missions that have been worked on. This whistleblower program, do you think that eventually there's going to be more that come out with this once they, know that their security may be maintained?
Well, you know that there's more reporting from pilots, especially military pilots, as of late, because I think some of the stigma has gone away from reporting. Where previously you were ridiculed, you could be grounded. In the earlier days of the military, they had the what was it, the Janeth protocols, where you could go to jail actually for reporting things. And as far as the whistleblowers themselves, I don't know if you guys remember this. About 3 years ago, a high-ranking Chinese official defected to the United States with his daughter that had military secrets. It was a big news story for one day, and you've never heard hide nor tail of this guy again. And today, a whistleblower came forth from the IRS, implying that Merrick Garland lied under oath about the Hunter Biden thing. And I would not want to be that guy's wife or kids today, because that guy's going to be in the spotlight. Talk about doxing. All right. So I think there's very good reasons why we may never know who some of these people are.
And Science Bob, we're going to give you the final word on the whistleblower aspect.
Okay. So the whistleblowers come in, they give testimony. Nobody in there is going to come up and bring a bunch of this stuff up without corroboration. They're going to go do, the staffers will call in other people that can corroborate their testimony. They haven't done that yet. And so let's suppose it's a deep, dark program that the whistleblower comes and talks to you about. Maybe nobody else in the program will answer the call, and they're not subpoenaing people yet. So these senators are trying to have all this taken seriously because they think our pilots, our Navy people, et cetera, are being threatened by these things coming around close to them and entering controlled airspace, et cetera, which is a violation. And the commanders have the right to shoot whatever it is down if they feel threatened. Okay, so they don't want to put somebody up there that makes what sounds like a wild claim, like we have alien bodies hidden in freezers in some place without corroboration, and they're going to have trouble getting anyone else in those projects to come out and talk about it. They need corroboration, and they're just not getting it.
Well, let's change the topic from whistleblowers to something that I have stated the last few months, going into 2023 here, where I really started to notice, especially after the Chinese balloons, and Random Guy, you and I have talked about this with Tim Seanor quite a bit about it. I think what I heard out of Sean Kirkpatrick's mouth today is there is a huge difference between what UAP are and what UFOs are. And I have always been a UFO guy because, I don't know, it just rolls off the tongue a little bit easier, and I don't like government acronyms very much, but that's a personal thing. But when I looked and studied over the last few months of where I saw a lot of this UAP talk, it always seemed to include the words China, Russia, drones, and now balloons and everything. And what we heard today, in my opinion, Random Guy, was all about man-made objects that are UAP, not alien, extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial, extratempestrial objects that could be from another civilization or another timeline.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we've discussed this, like I said, ad nauseum during the balloon shows. But yeah, there's definitely been a change in vernacular, and I think it serves two purposes. One is it allows you to shift from the old guard, if you will, of UFO, or if I call it ufology, I'll get in trouble. Ufology. Sorry, I'm new to this, but every single time. So if we start at Roswell or the one in 41 that was actually before that, but if you go from the whole timeline of UFOs up until, I think, 1996 is a date that sticks out to me. We'll talk about that later. But from that point to about 96, that's like UFOs. And some of it, or a lot of it, was misinformation intentional, whether it was three other agencies, whether it's our stuff, what have you. And I feel like they want that to go away because in the effort of being transparent or disclosure as we move forward with this other stuff, they want to change, whether it's a FOIA request, right? Trying to drag more information away. Oh no, that's, you guys asked for UAP stuff. That's UFO stuff. That's fiction. UAPs are hypothetically realistic. And so when you're talking about something that's hypothetically realistic versus the fiction that the government created pre-1996, you're able to segment the two subjects that way. And so, yes, we're focused on drones because now technology is more of a common knowledge of the general public. We all have the internet. We have Google. We have TikTok. Everybody has a million videos up there. So everybody knows what a drone is. We've seen some amazing technology. People have seen stealth, this and the other. So I think people are more accepting that something that's unexplainable, it's probably just something super secret the other guy's using. So if we call that UAP and all the stuff that possibly was legitimate, UFOs, we'll leave UFOs in the past. Let's talk about UAPs now. That's what I think.
All right. I just want to pass this on because on Facebook, watching is Kevin Day from the USS Nimitz incident. And he is saying, and Random Guy, I'm going to get you to respond to this. He is saying UAP are tectonic objects surrounded by quantum extremal surfaces, real physics or not.
Wow.
LOL. What's your thoughts?
I don't know any of those words because I only have a bachelor's degree. But I think what he means is you can see kinetic movement or tie kinetic movements to them rather than just photonic or light-based movement, if I'm guessing with my, I don't know, he must be a PhD. But yeah, that's my opinion on that. I think,
Yeah.
but it fits with what I'm saying. It's basically we have more data sets. In the old days, it was like, we got this photo, it's in black and white. In the old days, it's like, allegedly we have this crashed object. Allegedly we have this. I think it's more that now we have, again, even like Fitzpatrick was saying, like we're studying this stuff now. But I think we're studying in a way that's a controlled study. So it's a scientific process, but we're going to leave out the stuff that we know we can't talk about. That's just common sense. And I want them to do that. You should all want them to do that. Leave out our national defense stuff. And unfortunately, if it creates a question, we got to live with it. That's my opinion.
All right. Bob Spearing from MUFON, UAP, man-made, UFOs, something else. What's your thoughts after the hearings today?
They were definitely pushing that it's Russian and Chinese mostly, and downplaying the UFO anomalous side of it. But they were specific about the Chinese balloon, and I always go back to those other 3 objects that they shot down, where they say they'll never find them. If you talk about the Chinese balloon recovery, that was in the cold Atlantic Ocean. The package went down to the bottom of the ocean floor and they were able to retrieve it. But they can't retrieve something out of Lake Huron. They can't retrieve something on a pure white surface in the upper Arctic in Alaska, all right, that never melts, all right? And they have the actual coordinates where they shot the thing down 17 miles off the shore of Lake Huron. They don't have to look over thousands of miles to find these things. So they either found them and they're not telling us what it is because it's really bad. They found it in its hobby balloons, which is so embarrassing it's really bad. Or, they found it and they don't know what it is and it's really bad. So I think that Russian, Chinese, possibility, yes, some of it. Anomalous objects, definitely some of it.
All right, let's go to you, Louis Borges from UAP Studies Podcast. In regards to the acronyms here, I mean, it may not seem like, or pardon me, it may seem like a real useless argument, and we're marking up semantics here, but for years, everybody knows, Louis, what a UFO is. Nobody's sure what a UAP is, or a UUP, or I gotta go pee, or whatever it may be. Okay, help us out here.
Well, I mean, for me, UFO does have a lot of stigma, and I think the government initially wanted to change that acronym so that they could look at it a little more seriously. And I agree with Bob Spearing. Today, it was like anything you could do to remove anything anomalous out of it. UFOs is the woo from the past, and UAP is Russia and China. But it wasn't that long ago we had a Chinese balloon flying around and other things, and the media was calling those UFOs. It's almost like when it was identified as a balloon or something known, it's the tinfoil hat wearing ufologist out there gung-ho to call anything a UFO. So I think it's convenient to use whatever acronym sort of suits the side that you're trying to present. But yeah, I mean, we're UAP Studies. I was joking with you before, Dave. We always go back and forth. I'll take my acronym advice from the likes of Gary Nolan and Jacques Vallée and Avi Loeb. So it's UAP for me. And not everything is a flying object. What if it's a light? What if it's a portal? What if we're talking poltergeist activity? If it's something anomalous, and again, which UAP? Are we talking unidentified aerial phenomenon or unidentified anomalous phenomenon? It just gets more and more weird the deeper you go. But at the end of the day, it is semantics, but it is a conversation worth having because not everything is an unidentified flying object, in my opinion, anyway.
Science Bob, let's get to you on that one. Your thoughts?
So, I 6 or 1/2 dozen of the other. I don't really care. So because we got a lot of other stuff, USOs, UAPs, UFOs. I mean, I like unidentified anomalous stuff because we've got a lot of stuff that's not a craft, nuts and bolts craft. A lot of things that are not orbs. They're energy looking balls, beams, portals, flashes in the sky, and craft showing up. I mean, it's just, it's just so much stuff. They need kind of a grab bag term. But I do agree that what Sean Kirkpatrick claimed they found, that of all the reports they had time to go through, 92% or whatever it was are prosaic. So they were SCP, somebody else's problem, because the AARO does not have the authority, the legal authority under the law, to look at anything that's not unidentified. So if it's unidentified, it's in their authority. If it's not identified, it's somebody else's. And they got to set up all this process for, again, it's just bureaucratic stuff. They have to set up these processes for handing off all these somebody else's problem to somebody else.
Okay. My argument to that, I shouldn't say argument, my comment to that would be that when the Chinese drones and balloon came out, we were talking, everybody in the media went right back to UFO. Everybody, even the United States Air Force generals who were speaking were talking UFO. Nobody was talking UAP, because everybody knows what a UFO is. And that's kind of what sticks with me. Now, like I said, I know we're arguing semantics here, Bob, but to me, it just seems a little bit more clear that if you're trying to get the message to the public, you have to speak the way the public knows, which is UFO.
I would tell you what, I think the generals and the reporters and the people in the street, everybody wants to find a UFO. Everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're in uniform or not. Okay, so, but at the end of the day, we shot if you believe the stories, we shot a $500,000 Sidewinder with a multi-million-dollar operation with about $1 billion worth of equipment at a balloon. So it just, it's a bit embarrassing, to be honest with you, if all of them were some kind of balloon. That would be really embarrassing.
2 minutes to go. Dan Warren, let's get your take. I know you're a UAP guy, so I'm just going to go slouch down here and get quiet.
I thought you knew me this whole time, Dave. I am not a UAP guy. I am a UFO guy for sure. I think that UAP is basically a marketing ploy by the military to allow for their servicemen and women to feel comfortable reporting information up the chain. And I think that what Kirkpatrick studies is UAPs until they become SEPs, someone else's problems, and he can shuffle them off. And then what you have left is the UFOs. And that's what we all want, is the UFOs. Just like Bob was saying, we all want to find it. Everyone wants to see one of those things. But unfortunately, most 99% of what's out there are UAPs. So I think there's a differentiation there. Before I move on from this real quick, I want to circle back to Kevin Day and say, I don't know if I ever get a chance to interview him, and I hope he's watching this.
He is.
Something that I think it gets missed is the connection that he made back in 2009 when he wrote his Sailors Anthology book. He linked the phenomena to quantum mechanics back then, before that was even in my vocabulary, before I knew that there was an association between the UFO phenomena and the quantum realm. So I don't know how he made that connection so far ahead of the rest of us. Maybe you guys know, maybe some people on this panel were talking about UFOs and quantum physics in the same sentence back then, but I sure wasn't. I don't know how he got there so fast and so far ahead of the curve. So I applaud you for that.
When Dave and I talked to him at UFOCon in 2020, it's woo. He told us he got a download.
You got that right. And we want to say thank you to a great veteran, Kevin Day, from the USS Princeton, and helping uncover the 2004 USS Nimitz incident. When we return on Spaced Out Radio with our fantastic panel of Louis Borges, Bob Spearing, Random Guy Science, Bob, and Dan Warren, we're going to get into the politics side of UFOs, UAP. Where's this heading? Where are we going with it? We'll be right back with hour number 2. And it's that time of the night to say hello to all our agents and agencies tuning on in to Spaced Out Radio tonight. Hi, how are you? Give us a call sometime.
We own the night.
We already got the phone number. You already have the number. I don't have to give it to you because you already got it. So give us a call.
They're literally texting me as we speak. I'll be right back.
Don't forget, Old Davy can be bought. Old Davy can be bought. I always like to laugh at that. But thank you, guys. We're on break here for another 5.5 minutes. Bob, if you want to just lead the charge, because you never get up for anything, I'll be right back. Oh, he did leave it. Look at that. No, but I'll stick around. What the hell?
Hey, Dave, I got about 30 minutes left in me and my computer's battery. It might drop out before I get to the end of that, to be honest with you. I brought the wrong charger when I left.
Danny, that's all right. Your participation has been amazing tonight. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And Bob, you doing okay?
I'm hanging in there.
Good. That was a good, strong first hour. Mundo Anomalo, how you doing? All right. Yeah, we love Kevin Day around here. We do.
So I'm not ashamed to say this. His interview, I want to say it was on the UAP studies a long time ago. His was the only interview about UFOs that's ever made me literally tear up, because you can hear the emotion in him. He's the guy, in my opinion, for the emotional, the psychological impact that having the burden of having a story like this puts on people. And that's one of the things that I hope gets removed throughout this process, is that people don't feel so burdened by something they didn't choose to see or choose to interact with, that they'll have that lifted off of them. And it just lightens their load a little bit, because it looks heavy. In my opinion, what Kevin Day has been carrying is heavy. So I hope that he gets relief from what's going on right now, and I wish him the best moving forward. And I'm super glad he got married. I'm happy for him and Kim.
Those Navy guys, man. Navy guys. I have a Navy friend who's seen some crazy stuff in the last 6 months to a year, and I feel like I was like, the whole USO thing, which I guess now they're not USOs anymore. We're renaming that too.
Yeah.
To UUP or something.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't keep up. I can't. But
what
what
do you call a transmedium vehicle, right? What's the acronym for that? Something that's going out of the water into the air, up into space and back, right?
Well, that was my argument, because people were like, well, what about the viscosity and density of water? And I'm like, if you're able to travel through air at Mach 16 without friction problems, you're probably not going to have molecular issues with shredding H2O, right? I mean, I'm talking smarter than I am, but it's kind of, density shouldn't matter if you're able to be anti-gravity or anti-particle.
Right. And these things that I think out in the Atlantic over around Virginia, that they were seeing these things every day, the pilots flying around. There were some near collisions, and we at MUFON got several pilot reports in the past 2 years of almost collisions with these small cube-like objects that could possibly be similar to the octagon that was allegedly shot down over Lake Huron. And some of the videos that we have, when we took them apart frame by frame by frame, these things were going Mach 7. All right. And they're the size of a small car engine with no visible means of propulsion. So that's just crazy.
You talked about the octagon, right?
Yeah.
Someone tweeted earlier, because Kirkpatrick had posted all the stats, and he talked about spheres, all the triangles, this, that. I'm like, where are the damn octagons? No one got my joke. I was specifically talking about that, and it just went over everybody's head.
But I did a search after the Lake Huron thing. I did a search in the MUFON database for octagons, and what I found was fascinating. It's like you never hear about octagons, but we had a bevy of octagon-shaped objects, and a lot of them were of a similar size. A lot of them were 60 feet wide, according to the witnesses, in different locations over different years, which is suggestive that they were seeing the same thing or the same type of thing.
Pretty awesome.
All right. So did you guys read the letter that Marco Rubio and what's his name, Wicker, sent to the ODNI, and they were asking for information about the shoot downs, but they also mentioned a February 1st sighting and surveillance with a scrambled jet that they got no information about. And that predates the 3 objects that did eventually get shot down. So they mentioned it in their February 8th letter, and then they mentioned it again in their March 8th letter that something happened on February 1st that we're not aware of, that we didn't get. Hey, what's up, Melinda? That the public doesn't know about, basically. And I haven't heard anything since then.
No, and additionally, with this guy that leaked the stuff, the National Guardsman, there were apparently 4 more Chinese balloon incidents that were never released to the public. They weren't unknowns; they were Chinese balloons, but 4 more incidences, which makes you wonder how much stuff was flying over the United States.
Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on. Melinda, can you hear us? Okay. Okay, because
hey there.
Okay, we got you, Melinda. Good. All right. Thank you, Lala, Bob, Nancy, Ed, and
Dave.
Yes, we can. Here we go, everyone, with hour number 2 of the show. Let's go right now.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight. The SOR Space Travelers Club. Renarium. Renarium is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. The UFO panel continues tonight as we break down what happened in Washington, D.C. for the UFO hearings between Senator Gillibrand and Arrowhead Sean Kirkpatrick. Now, one of the things that we want to talk about, and Dan, I know you're limited on time, so I'm going to start with you on this one, was Sean Kirkpatrick did make mention that a lot of this subject may have to go into the hands of private companies. Now, recently, over the last few months, we've heard of a company called Enigma Labs that all of a sudden out of nowhere is being invited to meetings with NASA, meetings with Arrow. They are allegedly funded by one of the creators of PayPal, Peter Thiel, and they have millions of dollars apparently to work with. You know, this seems like it's setting up to go a little bit more private than public, Dan.
Okay, so I have to confess that I don't know a whole lot about Enigma Labs except for what I've heard on Spaced Out Radio. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to contribute a lot to this conversation. But yeah, I can see it moving. I think it was mentioned on here, like Bob said, if Arrow is to continue down the path they're heading down, it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars and years to get it done. Well, there's a lot more horsepower out in the public than probably within than the military industrial complex has an appetite for. So it might be beneficial to outsource some of it, just like they have in the past with Bass as well. So I don't know enough about Enigma to say if I think that's a good move or a questionable move. But one thing I do want to say is that calling Sean Kirkpatrick the Arrowhead is a good move. I think you hit it on the nose, Dave. That is the new term that we should all call Sean Kirkpatrick. It's perfectly fitting.
All right. Well, let's find out. Bob, let's get to you here before we bring in our newcomer to our panel, Melinda Leslie. Bob, your thoughts on the fact that Kirkpatrick did make mention of taking things more privately. And we do know that, you know, through what we have said on this show, that we have learned that there are ties to this Enigma Labs.
Which Bob?
You, Bob, Science
Okay.
Bob.
So yeah, I have been told by insiders that I know that there's a ton of politics in who's doing what, and there's the political infighting is pretty rough. And Teal and Enigma Lab seems to have won a favored position dealing with the collection of data from the public. So Arrow wants to concentrate on government acquired data, and they're going to let Enigma, I think, take over the collection of public data. Maybe involving MUFON. I know that MUFON has gone to meetings in Washington D.C. area about their involvement with the Congress, but I don't know if they have an involvement with Arrow. But if they're working with Enigma, the Enigma would take MUFON data and pass it on. But I don't know what the internal workings of MUFON and Enigma are. But Enigma is announcing they have this app, they have these abilities, they're designing a sensor and so forth. So I want to keep reminding people that a way that we could help, we the citizens of the world can help. There is a group called sky360.org that's giving away the ability to collect data on a UAP, and that can actually help the effort. But it'll only help if Enigma, who's going to collect the data, passes it on to the government in a usable form. But what really ought to happen is if you get a collection of Sky 360s or other citizen science object seeing a UAP and they're all clustered in an area, then you focus the fancy equipment that the government has at its disposal. And it might be easier for FAA and others to work with the citizen science organizations. And I asked this question of Chris Mellon at the Anomalous Conference in New York in December, and he agreed that it could be of help, but it needs coordination. And just like I said on other things, the coordination of all of this is going to take lots of money and lots of time.
All right, let's bring in Melinda Leslie here. And Melinda, thank you for coming on in. I know it's been a busy day for you, and you've talked to a lot of people about this. Yeah. I know you're not happy with what went down today, but let's just continue on with the conversation regarding privatizing more UFO studies, whether it's through scientists, whether it's through SCU or Galileo Project or Enigma Labs. We seem to be heading in that direction.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me on. Sorry, everyone. I had a tour night. Can you hear me okay first off?
Yeah, you're great, Melinda.
Okay. Wonderful. And hi, Dan. Thank you, Dan, today for your live, from the floor, from the room where it happened, and your pictures. That was fantastic to get that. And so it's a pleasure to see you here tonight. I didn't know you were going to be on with us. That's great. Yeah, I'm like Dan, though. I'm not following the Enigma thing that much, and I hate to disappoint everyone, but I'm just not. But as far as privatizing, well, it already did. I mean, isn't that what the Wilson memo, the Wilson notes, I should say, was all about? Eric Davis's notes was that they had privatized and that craft had been given to a aerospace company for reverse engineering, and the government kind of lost hold of it, which is why the second in command of Joint Chiefs of Staff, J2 position, couldn't get information. Admiral Wilson, he couldn't get information on it, and it wasn't read in. And I think this has been a problem all along. So, but as far as the research community, I don't know. I don't know enough about Enigma. What concerns me right off the bat, and has all along with Enigma, is I don't know who it is. I don't know who's on their board. I don't know anything about them. That's always been a problem. I mean, we can say, it's a problem when it goes to the government because they obfuscate and cover up, and we're witnessing that. We're getting disclosure, but we're also witnessing the control of it and information. As much as they're saying, there's so much more they're withholding, obviously. And so we're getting that. So you can say, oh, there's a problem when it goes to government. Well, then what would be not going to government would be private groups, privatizing. And it's like, okay, then we're trusting them. Either way, I think the bottom line here is the need for transparency. So I guess that's my answer to your question, is like, if we have transparency, whether it's the government or a private group, that's how, that's how we as the human race, because you guys, this is, UFOs are yes, it is about the technology because there's craft involved and there's that stuff, but it's really about who's coming and why they're coming. And it's our connection to others out there. We're not alone out. And whether you call it in this dimension or the universe or all the above, but we're clearly not alone. There's others. And it's about that. And I think everyone needs to keep eye on the prize. That's what it's about. And we got to press, whether it's a private company or the government, whatever it is controlling the information, or whoever has it at any given point. It's the transparency that's needed, because it's about the human race. It's about our future, who we are, our growth, our development, all of our decisions, economically, politically, socially, environmentally, going forward. We have to know this. And for it to be kept from us, whenever you're kept from any information, you can't be informed voters. You can't be informed decision makers. You can't be informed on what's best for the people, for the children, for the animals, or for the world, for the environment. You can't make any of those decisions. Anyways, I'll put away my soapbox. I feel better now.
All right, Melinda, we're going to continue on with Random Guy here. In regards to privatizing this, it gets it out of FOIA requests. It gets any subject out of asking or having to answer to the public, because it's private corporation. They don't even have to answer technically to the U.S. government when everything goes private. That seems a little dangerous for such an important topic that's going to literally affect every person in the world if UFOs and aliens out there are real.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you pick a company or you make a new one that doesn't have shareholders, because then you can do whatever you want. If it's independently funded, they get the contracts and they can run whatever they want under, they get that TSSCI clearance for that subsection of what they're doing business-wise for the government, and they can do whatever needs to be done, and it can't be questioned. There's a number of companies, buildings, sites all over the country that no one knows about right now that have a plethora, to use an SOR term, have a plethora of secrets in them. And they're not necessarily even alien stuff. I'm just saying, like, across the board, there's something really, really secret. It's hardly ever briefed in the military, in the DoD ranks, except for where it needs to be operationally effective and deployed. Outside of that, they keep it in the R&D section, and only a select number of people even have access to it.
Okay, but is that secrecy something that we should be looking at for UFOs?
Well,
I can understand Chinese drones or anything that could harm national security, but we don't know if UFOs are a threat to national security.
Well, it's a double-edged sword. So it's kind of like, it's a very polarizing subject, right? Like, if you believe, then you believe. If you have faith that your government is working on your behalf and has your best interest at heart, then you support the secrecy. If not, you could be a conspiracy theorist where you think the government's trying to destroy us and control us and all that stuff. My opinion on that is the government's not smart enough or organized enough to get almost anything done, much less control a population at that scale. But that's a whole nother story. I think most of the stuff is just done to keep stuff off the books. And potentially, if there is UFO stuff, I'm on the record saying, I don't believe we have it. But if we do, it is going to be in a corporate possession, because then it's off the books and then it's outside the range of scrutiny. That's what I would think. If we do have it, that's where it would be. It's not going to necessarily, it might initially go to a military holding, but they're going to get it the hell out of there because there's a whole lot of paperwork that goes with anything at any installation, any command, and you can only keep something secret for so long at the military level. You got guys coming and going. You got to put it at a corporate level where you have lifers and you can hold stuff over their head with NDAs so that military guys, they shuffle around and they talk.
Right. Bob Spearing from MUFON. I want to bring you in here first before we get to everybody else, because if this goes more private to, say, a group like Enigma Labs or whatever, this could affect what you guys do and what you have been doing for over 50 years with MUFON.
And New Fork also with Peter Davenport. Yes, is exactly right. Just to go back to the point of corporate taking, say, crash debris, like Bigelow taking it and putting it in a warehouse under contract with the government, and they can do plausible deniability, the government. We don't know anything about it, and a FOIA request doesn't have to get done. A FOIA request won't work with a private corporation. Okay. Now, to Science Bob's point, MUFON is not working with Enigma. In the early days of Enigma, Forbes magazine had an article that Enigma Labs had a 400,000 case database, and we didn't give them ours, and suddenly now they have a 270,000 case database. And if we have 130,000 cases, do the math, okay? So we're not working with Enigma. Yes, we do give reports to Congress for sure. Now, to the issue of private corporations doing this, I can tell you that their intent would be to put us and New Fork out of business, the public reporting of UFOs. And if you go to Google right now and type in report a UFO, they have a sponsored, search engine optimization ad that puts them first. Okay. Not only does it putting it in their hands hurt public ufology, because no one's probably ever going to see their reports. All right. You're sending your report as a witness into a black hole. At least MUFON and New Fork make our reports public, and MUFON does investigate. MUFON does publish some research. Not only does putting it behind a private corporation's wall, it's also fragmenting where all of the reports are going. You've got reports going to Enigma, you've got reports going to New Fork, you've got reports going to MUFON. Fracturing where the reports go is not a good thing. And I'll tell you this about Enigma. It's run by a woman by the name of Alice Lloyd George. She's a British entrepreneur, and Peter Thiel has given her $7 million. Peter Thiel's better known for owning, at one time, PayPal, but he also operates Palantir. Palantir is it's under contract to the DoD. It provides intelligence software for the Department of Defense. So if you've got Peter Thiel putting a lot of money into Enigma, that's not a good thing for the public knowing what's going on with UFOs.
Very strong comment. I want to ask you, but before that, then, okay, because with MUFON, there's a lot of criticism and a lot of question marks about Dave McDonald, the board of director, the head of the board of directors, going to Washington, D.C., and then signing on with a lobbyist group called A10 Associates, where members of that group are now members of the MUFON board of governors.
One is.
Or board of directors, pardon me. Or one is. Wouldn't a lot of people may look and say, isn't that the same thing? Or what is MUFON trying to do when you're supposed to be there for the public?
We're trying to stay relevant. Ufology is a rough neighborhood, and now you've got NASA creating boards, you've got Enigma Labs, all right? So we want to maintain our status as the premier organization. Not only is A10 our lobbyist in Washington to help us keep Congress's attention on us, but they're also our marketing agency. So you have to have these days somebody working for you. We are a small entity, a nonprofit of volunteers. So we have to have our footprint in Washington, and we have to have a bigger marketing footprint to stay relevant.
Thank you so much for clearing that up. Melinda, I know you wanted to make a comment.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think this is a problem that exists in the past with stuff going priority, because that's, again, I think the evidence is that's where the technology went. And that's a problem, because when it went into corporate hands, it stopped being the government secret. And so when there's it's like it stopped the government having control over it when it went into aerospace hands. I think that, like I said, the evidence shows that. Maybe I don't know what the answer is and the best outcome here, because but I do get worried about the things that were just brought up regarding who's paying for that and why and where that information could be coming. I mean, it sends all sorts of red flags to me, and I still don't know who's on their board and everything. I just
nobody knows.
Yeah,
Nobody
I mean, I have a problem with that. Maybe I'm alone there, but if someone knows more, explain it to me, because I have a problem with that, and I have a problem with so many people in the field rushing to be on board with that. It's like, wait a second, there's no transparency. The whole point is we're looking for transparency, not to get into more secrecy. It's just replacing government secrecy with corporate secrecy. That we've had a problem with that already. There's a bad history with that.
We're gonna save that
technology and everything because of that. So
Melinda, save that thought, because we're going to talk about transparency at the bottom of the hour, and I want to get to Louis Borges, who's been very silent this hour, picking out his tie collection. Okay, that he's going to put on. But Louis, we got 2 minutes here before we got to go to break.
Okay,
Just your
I'll be quick. So there was mention in the meeting today. Kirkpatrick did say there needs to be like a public database, and he also said in the same breath that we can't have just anyone with a camera. So that's one thing we haven't really mentioned today. Was it seems like the witness testimony is thrown out the window with all of this. It's like if there was no sensor data and they don't have it, it didn't happen, or at least it's not their problem. It's somebody else's problem. So I think someone's posturing for that reporting job. I think it will be Enigma, because if it was MUFON, we would have heard about it by now from our open and forthcoming friends in the MUFON community.
Dan, I know you got to go at the bottom of the hour here. We got 2 minutes for you that we're going to keep you, and hopefully your computer lasts 2 minutes. But the idea of transparency here, if this goes a lot more public, like Sean Kirkpatrick seems like he would like it to go, and we know there is a relationship between Kirkpatrick and Peter Thiel, where is that transparency going then, Dan? Where would that line start for the public?
So they did mention that they were putting together a public-facing interface, is what I'll call it.
Oh no!
Oh, his computer went on him right there. I knew we were down on time. But Bob, I'll ask you the same question here, okay, regarding this, because, with a minute to go, and we will carry it over, Science Bob, the idea behind where we're going in the next half hour is transparency, okay? How do we get transparency in 30 seconds or less when Kirkpatrick's talking about going to a private company, but that company is allegedly going to be there for the public? And that reads right into what Enigma is saying on their website.
The proof is in the eating of the pudding. So in other words, I don't believe a word of it until we see Enigma actually enact and do some transparency. I won't believe it until then.
I won't believe it either. Transparency is up next on Spaced Out Radio. By the way, Dan Warren just texted me. He's like, sorry, Dave, my computer just died on me. My bad. Have a great night. We thank Dan Warren for coming on Spaced Out Radio for the 90 minutes. He was actually at the hearings today. You can find him at Fifth Pillar of Emphasis on TikTok. He's got well over 300,000 subscribers. Great for UFO news. When we return, we got the panel: Louis Borges, Bob Spearing, Random Guy, Science Dragon Bob, Melinda Leslie, Tim Seanor may join us as well. Spaced Out Radio talks transparency and UFOs next on on the mighty SOR. Poor Danny. Poor Danny.
Yeah. He did
So
such a good job.
there were some subtle but important things in today's meeting.
Lots of important things.
Sean kept talking about science being done by NASA. Well, NASA has zero access to all the classified systems. So this is the IC and the Pentagon's way of isolating anybody that can tell them anything. So they're over there working on whatever data they can get to try to figure out something when they don't have access to any of the classified data.
Hey, Science Bob, did you hear towards the end of the presentation Kirkpatrick gave where he mentioned, and this almost went over my head, that most of the objects in these reports that they have were 5 meters?
Yep.
Did you?
Yes.
That's like 13 feet. So
Yep.
it's like I found that very interesting little tidbit.
Well, that's exactly what Ryan Graves is saying. Is they're about 5 meters with a cube inside off the Virginia coast, and Tic Tac is a different shape.
You guys, I'm sorry. I just have a problem with all that stuff. I think they have so much bias on their information gathering. They're getting only like what they're looking for. They're, and to say 50% of it is spherical per those per their projection that they had there, their slide or their graph. And it's like, that's ridiculous. Anyone, Bob, Bob Spearing, you look at the MUFON data, you look at any of the data, that's not the way it works out in the number of sightings people are having. And why would the military be having different ones? Well, okay, maybe there's something to be looked into there, but I just think maybe their data is so skewed. That whole graph they showed, when you actually look at it, you go, wait a second, they're only getting it from their sensors at their locations, and it's so skewed it doesn't represent the UFO subject whatsoever.
What I claimed was not transparent. They didn't tell us where the data came from.
Well, it said on that graph, it had a picture of where the bases were, and he even said in the meeting, Kirkpatrick even said that this is where we're getting them from, because these are our facilities. I'm like, it's totally skewed. It doesn't represent the subject. I mean, it might represent something they're getting, but to say that overall represents the subject and throw out all the other data from around the world that people are getting.
In the beginning,
I have a real hard time with that.
In the beginning, he told us that he was going to exclude 95% of the data because he was not taking any eyewitness testimony. He told us that.
Yeah, but military witnesses, I mean, to exclude that would be ridiculous.
No, he even excluded them because he wants censored data. He wants censored data to make sense of what the objects are. He excluded them.
Fight.
But I think to exclude what military witnesses are seeing, what pilots are seeing who are trained observers.
No, pilots have multiple sensors in their airplane. He will take that data.
The sensor data, yeah, but will he take like stuff being filmed by the gun cameras and whatnot?
Yeah, but it has other sensors with it. He's not going to take Robert Salas walking out of his silo and seeing an orange orb.
But will he get the data from that incident of when those were shut down? Because there's data there, if that can be accessed.
It depends. But I'm going to tell you, I believe he has essentially stopped looking for historical data. He's taking the thumbs he can get now and do science on with multiple sensors so he can make progress. Because the NDAA and the language itself just about forces their hands to deal with drones and hand them off to somebody else.
Yeah, when he said SCP, someone else's problem, that spoke volumes, I think, to all of us. That was like,
well, they don't have the authority.
Pass off stuff.
They don't have the authority.
Anything.
If they can identify it well enough to know it's not anomalous, they have no authority to look at it under the legislature.
I got to get you guys to hold on right there. We're on in 10 seconds. Thank you, Ken, Ed, Nancy, Bob, and Lala for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show. Do us a favor. Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, and hit subscribe. Here we go. We've crossed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on with our panel tonight from MUFON. Bob Spearing, researcher, experiencer Melinda Leslie, our random guy from the UFO Report, Science Bob McGwier, and from UAP Studies Podcast, Louis Borges. We had to say goodnight to Dan Warren. His computer literally died on him, but he says thank you to all of our listeners tuning on in, and he apologizes that technology made him have to leave early, but thanks everyone on the panel and listening in tonight to his reactions to this. We are talking about the study of UFOs and transparency after what happened in Washington, D.C. today between Senator Kristen Gillibrand and the head of the Aero program at the Pentagon, Sean Kirkpatrick. We're talking transparency, Louis Borges. It just seems like trying to go into the public hands through a private group may not be the best thing that's going to be for this subject when it comes to UFOs and whether or not we are currently being visited or whether we already are in possession of technology that is around this system. What's your thoughts of everything?
Yeah, for me, it's difficult to put UFOs, the government, and transparency in the same sentence. And, what I took out of today's hearing, too, is that if they're just reshuffling and sending it back to a different agency, that kind of defeats the purpose of having a resolution office. Shouldn't that be where the buck stops? It goes there, it gets figured out, it doesn't go back into the system. And it shouldn't go back to the same agencies that a lot of us believe have mishandled this intentionally or otherwise for over 75 years. So for me, it feels like it's a big circle. And again, another flavor that was overwhelming was all of the methods of collection and what they're going to do with it. It's not for us, the public or the enthusiasts. It's for them. It's military and government talking about who else in military and government they're going to share this with. So as much as we all want these things to be for us and, disclosures coming, they're still holding all the cards. So I don't think transparency, and again, you can't be totally transparent in the, the military world or like the secret worlds of, CIA and things like that for good reason. So there's arguments on both sides, but it's frustrating for those of us that want to actually see something or get some meat. And it just seems to be more and more elusive with each hearing that happens.
Bob Spearing from MUFON, I want to bring you here because, one of the things that is a concern, not only for MUFON and its membership, but where does this transparency go? You guys all rely on the public to tell their stories, to report them in. What did they see? What did they experience? Was there any, was it just a craft? Did it land? Any aliens, any weird beings, any time lapses, anything? You are relying on the public. And if the public reports are going to be privatized for the usage of the United States government by whatever company they use, let's say it is Enigma Labs that it looks like they're siding with, how is that good for the public? How is that good to take those public reports that everyday Joe and Jill citizen give and put them behind a paywall and or behind the government walls, hidden behind a private corporation.
Well, like I said earlier, if you're Joe on the street and you see something and you go, "Oh, I want to report this UFO," and you type in "report a UFO" on Google, your first hit now is going to be Enigma. If you go to Enigma's website, you don't see their database. So if you're Joe submitting that report, that's the end of it. The government or whoever is getting it, and that's it. This is a bad thing. Now, people criticize MUFON because we put stuff behind a paywall, but that's how we survive, all right? And we give all of our members access to different levels of information, and we have more coming. The Mars database will be coming, which is reports that people have never ever seen from 1969 up till 1996. This is all going to be released by us, but we have to survive. All right, we don't have the millions that Peter Thiel is giving. So for $6 a month, a MUFON member can actually go to our CMS and see, the date, time, place, and a narrative, as well as the video and the photographs or the sketches that witnesses make. All right, and in defense of Peter Davenport at New Fork, who doesn't put his stuff behind a paywall, but gets ripped off by all of these corporations. You just steal wholesale from them because it's out there and it's not copyrighted. But he's doing a great service for ufology also by making it transparent. Okay. And while Peter Thiel and Alice George, have millions of dollars to use AI, all right, we don't yet. But AI will incrementally become less and less expensive. And I truly believe that if the government finds out the answer and they don't tell us, there's enough information now that some armchair ufologist from MUFON or freelance, whatever, at some point is going to maybe figure it out when the technology gets cheap enough to use it. I tried out ChatGPT the other day and I was really impressed, throwing in some statistics from reports, and what I got back was very interesting. So I don't think that if Enigma doesn't produce something for their masters soon, at some point, maybe their funding will go away and public ufology will survive.
Is that even possible, Bob? Science Bob? Let's switch Bobs here.
No. Here's the problem. All the AI that Enigma claims it's going to make for us, you need gobs and gobs and gobs of data to train the machine learning models. Where does the data coming from? MUFON's not giving it to them. Are they ripping off New Fork? Where are they getting the data? And is it biased? Is it all this stuff that Melinda's talking about from 4 places on the earth that's near a military base? It makes no sense to use their machine learning when it's not general, uniform, distributed data over the surface of the earth. It makes zero sense. It's ridiculous and a waste of taxpayer money. So we need, I tell you, we need a citizen science, widely distributed set of sensors, and let that start encouraging, because the citizen science observatories that are doing situational awareness on these UAPs, they're identifying things that are and are not. They are identifying things that are prosaic and eliminating them, and their database is public and the code is open source. I mean, you're not going to get that out of Enigma. You're not even going to come close.
But yet that's the way it's going right now, and that's unfortunate. And Tim Seanor from the UFO Report, thank you for jumping on in here with us tonight, and appreciate you. We're talking about transparency here regarding the idea that Sean Kirkpatrick said that a lot of this needs to be publicly sourced, by potentially private companies. We all know, leading up to this, he is talking about Enigma Labs. That's the only one that he could be talking about, because they're not in cahoots with MUFON, as Bob Spearing has confirmed. And there are other groups out there that seem to be forming and trying to get in there as well. But transparency is very hard, Tim, when you have privatization with the subject.
You're absolutely right. And it's great to see everyone. I apologize for being late, but this is a great topic, and transparency definitely deserves a lot of attention when it comes to this topic. And when you bring up something like Enigma Labs, you have to show your work when it comes to science and data. You can't just give me some information and be like, okay, here you go, but not explain how you came about the information. And then if there's any data to be shared on how you came to this story, share that with us as well. So the transparency portion of this is incredibly important. And also where they're sourcing their information is also important, because the reliability of the source needs to be vetted by everyone, not just by the organization that's presenting it. So if it's, whether it's Ufos or Jacques Vallée, we deserve to know the source of their information, whether it's Enigma Labs or MUFON or anyone. Now, that transparency can often be disguised by anonymity, but at the same rate, you'll find that most people, when they have an incredible sighting and they're willing to file a report, they want feedback. They want to hear if anyone else has seen it. They're usually looking for confirmation for their sighting. So they're looking for feedback. And unless a website or a reporting agency offers that two-way street, I think reporting should be considered or reconsidered perhaps before moving forward with.
Okay, random guy. Let's get you in here, and thank you, Tim, for that. When you look at the transparency side, you've played on the other side where, things are secret. Things are, sometimes a secret is better to be kept than not explained. And even though it's hidden right out in the open. For you, when you look at, you've heard us talk and you've joined in the conversation about privatization of UFOs and Enigma Labs as we've delved deep into that on this show. How is the public supposed to benefit from any type of knowledge if it's, like you like to say, a trust me bro type situation?
Well, that's just the thing, is it's a double-edged sword. So on one hand, you have collation of data, right? So if you have XYZ company, I won't say the one you keep saying because I feel like we're unfairly picking on them, but any company, any business could start up and get that contract, assuming they have the right political ties, right? So you get those things, and on the one hand, it's a double-edged sword. So it's great because then NASA's throwing them data, DOD's throwing them data, they get file access, they get, all the top tier data. The other benefit, if they're a private company, is, like people are talking about the AI-based stuff now, AI can sort that data for you now in a much more proficient way than researchers ever have been able to do. So if you have a high level, like SQL database of information, like I'm sure MUFON or somebody has, and you're able to import that into an AI client, they can get you those answers way faster than humans can by looking at that data side by side. So it literally comes down to two things. Are they going to tell us publicly the truth without oversight, which I doubt? I'm sure there's some things. So here's the way I hope. I hope if the DOD, NASA, and everybody's giving these private companies the data, that they've already cherry-picked the national security stuff out of it. And I know you guys hate me saying that, but we need to do that. Because then if they do that, then they can truly speak freely about the data they provide to the public. And that's why I'm an advocate for that. Take what it is that you're going to stonewall, hide, whatever, out first. Give them the real data of the unsolved stuff and let them run with it. Flip side of that coin, that sword, have you, is conspiracy. They're here to misinform us, to take us off the path of disclosure, to take us off the path of the truth. If you believe that, then it's a bad thing. Because then all they're doing is adding another layer to the secrecy, another layer to making it opaque rather than transparent.
All right. I think that's a great answer. Melinda Leslie, let's get to you.
What good is all that technology and AI ability and whatever Enigma is able to do with all their money and everything to do it if the data isn't there to help everyone? Okay, if the data is going only to Enigma, no one else, that does no one anyone good, and then we're trusting the government, where's their transparency if all the data goes to the government and not to anyone else? What I liked about MUFON and Ufos and National UFO Reporting Center and everything, like Bob was saying earlier, the data can be accessed by everyone. It's, you guys, UFOs and their presence here and ET presence here is not a corporate secret. It's not the government secret. It's for everybody. It's for the future of mankind and whether we survive or not. And everyone needs to stop going, oh, who gets it? We all get it or nobody gets it. End of story. Okay? We all get it or nobody gets it. In other words,
you got me a little afraid there.
For the data to go to the government. It does no good for it to go to an organization that does not get shared. At least I trust National UFOs and to some, to most part, Bob, for MUFON, okay, that they're going to share the data. And there's all the British organizations, French organizations. Thank God there's multiple worldwide organizations doing this and sharing their data, okay? If someone wants to also share their data, like, you know, it used to say that MUFON and Ufos and all these said, yeah, the government can look at our database along with everyone else. That's how it should be. Enigma, great. If they want to come in and use all that technology, but you guys, you don't own the data and you don't give it all only to the military, nobody else. Again, you make it available to everybody. If you care, you make it available to everybody. Otherwise, this doesn't help us. It doesn't forward the human race. It doesn't forward our knowledge on the subject. And we're not getting the truth.
Melinda definitely wants to talk to the manager. Damn, girl.
Holy cow. But Bob Spearing, this brings up a good point, though, that Melinda is making. You know, if you're privatizing something, whether it's Enigma, who we all think, or whether it's another company, that means there's somehow money to be made. Private corporations don't get into this if there's $0 to be made. You don't go throwing $7 million just out of curiosity. The only one that we know who's done that was Bob Bigelow out in Nevada. But this seems like somewhere, somehow, there's some dollar signs being talked about regarding this subject of UFOs and UAP, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to be in it for something, these private corporations, because they wouldn't be spending that much money if there wasn't something in it for them. But it's like, what is it that's in it for them? Is it that they're trying to find, you know, patterns? All right. Are they interested in witness experiences? Do they really want witness information more than the actual report itself, because they want to analyze witnesses for some reason in like a CIA type operation? I don't know what they get out of this, except that perhaps if they have access to a certain type of data, that it can help them, say, back engineer something or whatever. All I can tell you is that you need MUFON, you need Newfork, you need Ufos, you need David Mahler, you need the archives for the unexplained in Sweden. You need all of these open databases, because if corporations are looking for some way to make money, the public is not. The public is looking for information. You, me, everybody else, we want the answer. We're not looking to profit off it. All right. We want an answer. And I think that's fair. But yes, when government and private corporations try to privatize and put it behind a wall, there has to be something else going on.
Science Bob, would you agree with that?
Oh, I do indeed. So it's just not possible under the structure that's been set up for the data to be put together in a way that the public can use it. So I'm just opposed to it. That's number one. Number two, there's this never-ending fear that if they collect all this high-quality data and make it available to the public, somebody will discover something that lets the Russians or the Chinese build a flying saucer and blow us away. There's just, it's all fear dominated. And greed dominated and secrecy dominated. And we just got to figure out a way to break through this so we all make progress.
Where's the money, Louis?
It's like anything, garbage in, garbage out. So when we say data, it depends on what is done with that and who is doing what with it. And I've heard that Enigma has a ranking system where if somebody sees a light in the sky, that's like a 1. But if somebody sees a ship, a light, a creature, that's considered a 4 or a 5. So just because somebody's account might be missing certain features, it's now downgraded in this stack of data. And maybe there's gems that are missed. And I know it's, and to Random Guy's point, any company can get these contracts. I'm sure it's just like any other government contract. They have a need for data collection. You put together a good business plan. We have a way of doing it. You're going to get the contract. But I think it's what is being done with that data, who has the oversight to filter it, and are we going to miss anything sort of in that translation?
That's a good point. That's a good point. Tim Seanor, let's bring you back here. We got about 3.5 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Just in regards to the privacy of this, and if ufology is taken private, how does that affect what we do as researchers or you as a budding filmmaker?
Oh, everything affects everybody. I mean, anytime there's a new topic, it's going to affect that community. But I just actually wanted to bounce something off the back of what Bob had said there about there being a separation of truth, you know, and like anytime you see dollar signs, there's probably no truth involved, right? And I want to attach that if there is a dollar sign involved, it's probably attached to some sort of mystery, right? And so take any of the websites that are kind of mysterious and then talk about kind of more the mystery side, there's probably a dollar sign attached to it. Look at the shows that surround this topic. There's a mystery to be sold there. Even if they're selling a bit of science, it's really the mystery that's generating the dollars. And so that's a completely different topic. But I find that it's very interesting that we're starting to see that they're kind of targeting the entertainment business for this topic and blurring the lines between entertainment and truth and science. And so people are really kind of almost being duped by simple science, if you will, when the truth of the real phenomenon is incredibly like elusive and hard to capture. So, you know, the stuff that you're being shown, the 2 videos that were released by the DOD along with this release today, just go to prove that if you're seeing it on camera, most likely it is mundane because it is like the true UFO is incredibly elusive.
Very true. We got 90 seconds to go here, and Science Bob, we'll turn it over to you if you don't mind, or do we call you Science Dragon here? I'm not
Science
sure.
Dragon. Look, we need to continue to pay attention. We need to continue to try to contribute in any way we can to any effort that is open, transparent. New Fork, we all know Cheryl Costa. She got all of her data from MUFON for all of her books. We want to continue to contribute to these open, transparent efforts because until we do, we're just not going to be told the truth.
And yeah, I agree with you, Bob, on that. You know, my thing, because I haven't really given my opinion here yet, my thing on the transparency is, you know, we've seen this type of action before where things go private. It happened in 2007 when Robert Bigelow kind of started to take the privatization of ufology, and we kept hearing all these stories. It's amazing what we're seeing. It's amazing, but we're not going to tell you exactly what we see. And we see that with a lot of these UFO videos that have come out. And the only thing that the public seems to want, as we try to be a voice of the public here at Spaced Out Radio, is why can't we play too? We meet the height requirement. We meet the age requirement. Okay, this isn't a Disney ride where certain people can't get on a roller coaster. And yet we seem to be getting kicked off that roller coaster ride each and every time. And the more they try and do it, the more they try to push the public off to the side. We don't need you. We don't need you tinfoilers. We don't need your stories. We don't need your research or blogs or YouTube channels or podcasts. But file your story with us. so that way we can have your information. It's a double-edged sword, as Tim says, and it's an ugly one and dull one at that. Hour 3 is Spaced Out Radio is going to come up. We got Random Guy. We got Tim Seanor. I'm going to see who we can hold over from the panel as well. We'll be back right after this on the Mighty SOR.
Well, it's 2 a.m. in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, and I got contractors coming to paint some walls tomorrow, so I'm going to sign off. Dave, thank you as always for having me. Guys, ladies,
Yes.
It was a pleasure seeing you guys, people again. Yes,
Nice
Dave.
meeting you, Bob.
Bob, could you do me a favor? Someplace I accidentally misplaced your phone number. Can you or send me a Facebook messenger
Sure.
with your phone number on it? I'd appreciate that.
Okay,
He
sure.
probably changed it on purpose.
Probably.
He didn't want you calling him.
I keep changing mine, and the mofo keeps calling me. I don't know what's going on, man.
Okay.
It's scary. Bob Spearing, thank you.
Okay, peeps, take care.
Take care,
Melinda, Science Dragon, and Louis, if you guys want to stick around, you're more than welcome to.
I'm gonna head her. I got a busy life with a 2-year-old who's in the terrible twos, and it feels like about 2 a.m. for me. So
Great seeing you, Louis.
head her. Yeah, good to see everybody. Great chat. You guys have
See you, Louis.
big brains.
Take care, brother.
Sharon, I'll be back anytime. Dave, just put the bad sign up in the air. I'll be there.
Thanks, buddy. You take
Yeah.
care. All right.
I'm gonna hang out. I'm unemployed with a drinking problem, so I'm here.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. All right.
No
Well, I'm going
problem
to
at
take
all.
a quick break here. You guys chat away. I'll be right back.
He's like, Jesus.
Excellent. Excellent. I actually had a question for Dan. Unfortunately, I didn't get it in there before he split. But I was wondering, I'd seen some images from the after, like when Senator Gillibrand was meeting some of the people that had come for the open portion of the hearing. And it looked like, that was probably where Dan was in that open portion. And they had some people that were offering up their book on UFOs, and some people had, or at least one dude had brought like a model of a saucer I saw in one photograph. And I was just wondering, like, with that being the supporting group, do you feel that that was a fair representation of the people that are supporting Gillibrand and kind of like the push for transparency on the topic? Because it feels like they almost gear things towards the extreme, to kind of discredit almost. Do you know what I mean? Like the scientists weren't in the crowd. I mean, Dan was there, fortunately, kind of representing perhaps like the level-headed group. But I'm saying it seems like, the media, of course, would highlight the extremes, and I'm wondering, did they do that on purpose? Are those photographs geared that way to kind of form an opinion? What do you guys think?
They let the public come in, and that's who showed.
And that's just who shows up.
Yeah,
Right.
that's normal for those hearings.
Okay.
No, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, Melinda.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'd leaned on my mic, I guess. Yeah, no, Tim, those are just the people who showed up. But it was embarrassing because, it's people who live in DC in the area, like that, whatever. Okay, Dan was there, great. A few other people that were there. But unfortunately, you guys, I used to be a conference producer. We would ask the news media come. They would come and they would look for the person who had the tinfoil hat on. They would find the person wearing the pyramid on their head. And we would have speakers who were the top-notch scientists in the field. And we would line up for the media to talk to these people. I used to do this with James Aramat for I want to say it's
Cat in the hat.
That does not help. Dragon Face is saying that does not help.
Yeah. For the conferences, and we would have the speakers that we wanted them to talked to. No, they would find the person wearing the tie-dye and the hair with every strand a different color. They would find that person and interview them. You guys, that's what just happened. We have a couple people who were there who just happened to be there, Tim, but that's who the media found. No, could they talk to Dan and who would have come across so grounded? No, and one or two other guys that were there. But the guy with the crazy pictures and the guy who had, the striped shirt with the plaid coat with the Western bolo tie, it's like, you guys, first off, you don't go to an event like that, dress like that. Come on. You're representing the field. Be a professional.
Who are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about after the hearing, the briefing in the Senate, and the media glommed on to a couple of people there that unfortunately
tinfoil
the subject in a certain way, and they were there. So Tim, if that's a cross reference, because those people are also in the field, we all know them. You go to the UFO conferences, you're going to get those people too.
Dave?
And do you start excluding people? No, of course not.
Yes,
you have to
Bob.
be inclusive.
I'm about to fold over.
Okay. All right, Bob.
Sorry, Bob.
Yeah, I'm about to pass out right here.
See you, Bob.
See ya.
Take care, buddy.
All right. Thank you tonight to Nancy H ×2, Lara, Ken, Ed, Bob, and Lala for the super chats. We're going to kick off hour number.
You're not helping.
All right. Hold on, guys.
RG, you're.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Renarium. Renarium is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Due to the specialty of tonight's program, we are going to be skipping our good friend Swamp Dweller tonight. We'll get back to him tomorrow night for another spooky story, but we are going to continue on with the UFO subject tonight regarding what happened in Washington, D.C. regarding the latest UFO public hearings. Were they public? Were they rhetoric? Were they a little bit more? Now, our panel has been cut in half because a lot of guys could only stay for a couple of hours, but we say hello and welcome to Tim Seanor from the UFO Report. Random Guy is here, and Melinda Leslie is here as well, researcher and experiencer. And, we talked about transparency in the last half hour regarding this subject, and it's tough to say what we should know and what we shouldn't know. Now, Melinda, you lead into the subject of we need to know everything. I agree with you on that because I think there is no such thing as disclosure unless we know from at least Roswell on this way on the timeline where we are now that we have the understanding that maybe we aren't alone in the universe. Maybe we do have crash retrievals. Maybe we have been visited by extraterrestrials. How do you define disclosure when it really seems that we're close to a confirmation of the UFO field, but nowhere close to getting the data that goes along with it, Melinda?
Well, yeah. One thing, I know Dolan keeps pointing this out, and one thing that was clear today. Now, don't get me wrong, you guys. There were some good takeaways from today, and then there were some problem areas too. I'm not 100% negative. I'm middle of the road on it, but I'm disappointed in a bunch. And one of the things I was disappointed in with the Senate hearing today is one of the things Arrow was tasked with was the historical data. And when he talked about, all the things we're doing and the data we're gathering, none of that came up. Thank God they addressed the witnesses, and he got into that, and the technology and the science. I'm okay with him addressing that. But they were tasked significantly with going back to 1945 for the data and for the past cases and for the legacy program stuff. None of that came up today when he said, these are what we're doing. And it was like, he doesn't want to even go after that. And I get that. Okay. It's maybe not his thing, but then why didn't Gillibrand and the other ladies, why didn't they go, what are you doing for the historic data? You haven't told us what you're doing with that yet. That didn't come up. And it's like, that was one of the major things per the NDAA that they were tasked with. And it's like, so for as much as he covered, there was so much left out. And I kept thinking Gillibrand was going to come around and say, what about this? What about that? And I felt like she just hung up the towel and kicked back and said, okay, we're done. And that was it. It was like, she's normally tough. She's normally a go-getter. And I'm like, why didn't she go after these other things? Why didn't she bring up the historic data? What are you guys doing? How are you working on that? So I felt like there's no oversight here to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. I thought that's what today was about. I thought those senators, I'm also really disappointed it was only the 3 women and that there weren't other senators there. Now, apparently we're hearing through the grapevine there were maybe more in the closed door session. But it's like, if they were in the closed door session, why weren't their arms twisted by Gillibrand and others to say, stay for this? Because we have to show the public we give a crap. It just looked to me like no one cared, no oversight. Kirkpatrick's doing what he wants, and he's ignoring half the data, And it's like, it was just really frustrating. And Gillibrand, who normally goes after it, I don't know why she didn't this time. I don't know what's going on. Someone said she was just playing politics. I think she was.
See, and that was, and Melinda, to add to what you're saying, and Random Guy, I'll get to you in a second. One of the things that I found very interesting about that was, leading up to this, she had been very brazen publicly about where is the money going? Why hasn't any of this budget gone to Arrow? And she was very public about getting to the bottom of where the Pentagon was spending the money, or where the Defense Department was spending the money. And one of the biggest complaints was that Arrow was being extremely underfunded and malnourished with resources in order to try and get that job done. And that came up very well from her. And to not bring that up in the public, Melinda, that just blew me away. I was actually quite shocked by that.
Yeah, I might be inclined to agree. I mean, there was the previous budgetary hearing thing that we saw a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, maybe what there's data here possibly we don't know, which is that she may have gotten the proof she wanted that they were getting the funding now, so it might have been less about that. But if this hearing was, Arrow, are you following through on everything we tasked you to do? How come half the subjects per the NDAA were not brought up, And some of them were given just lip service, like the witness stuff. Oh, thanks for sending me the witnesses. Why didn't the senators come back and say, what do you feel their data about? Excuse me. Witness data. and then it just bugged me to no end that she said, is there a way for these witnesses to report to you now, for these military and government witnesses to come forward a secure way, blah, 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 blah. And he said, oh, yes, last year we started working on a website. And she said, oh, so is that up and running? And he said, no. Well, how far along are they on it? She didn't know. No one had briefed her in 5 months. Sorry, no one briefed her in 5 months. What was going on at the website? Was there a place for people to report? And Kirkpatrick then goes, I don't know how far along they are. It's like, dude, this is how people are supposed to report to you. And it showed me two things. One is he's only doing the things he's interested in, A, and B, it showed me he could give a shit about witnesses.
All right.
Sorry.
Random
Sorry.
guy.
Let's
get to you here. Random guy.
You want to edit that now? No, I'm just kidding. No, so with Gillibrand, I'm not going to go political with it, but let's face the facts here. She ran for president for the clout. She knew she wouldn't win. She wanted that. She got behind the demonizing cryptocurrency. All right. Once that got all the attention, all the ballyhoo, she walked away from that too. To me, I don't know the lady, but she has a history of sensationalizing popular topics, wanting to be outspoken about them, but not really understanding them enough to do anything effective. So she throws her name in the ring for them and then kind of just says, I did that. And I feel like with her, I'm wrong. That's fine. This is just casual outsider observation that she has a history of doing this kind of stuff. And this, the UFO UAP stuff's been a hot button. So she wanted to throw her name in the ring with it, act indignant, act like she cared. Today, I didn't see somebody that cared. I see somebody that was pacified, that took the easy route, that threw softballs, obviously coordinated how that entire hearing was going to go. My opinion, but if you look at what I'm saying, you can verify that there's a history there of what I said.
Tim Seanor, let's get your opinion on the softballs that were being thrown today. There wasn't a lot of hard questions. There wasn't a lot of drilling. There wasn't a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It was very passive.
As we should have probably expected for the public portion of the hearing. And I would like to consider that potentially the historic data and some of the whistleblower data or testimony came through in the private side of the conversation that took place. We know that there was 24 witnesses that potentially had lots of information. So I'm sure that there was data shared at some point. And we know that there is the nuclear interest. So I'm sure that those are some topics that would be considered high level and probably not suitable for the public portion. This is just me spitballing ideas, just so that we could potentially consider that it was covered, but we just may not know about it. And of course, we know that in June, we're going to have another session of public hearings, and it's going to be led by Tim Burchett. So potentially that would be another chance to have some aggressive conversations publicly and behind closed doors on the topic. And again, I'd like to consider that, this was progress despite maybe inadequate resourcing. And, it's clear that Kirkpatrick is being very clear and forthright about his methods, that he's using proper scientific method in his investigations. But he was very clear that he remains woefully inadequate when it comes to budget and data. And he acknowledged, and I think even in a quote, he had said that it has been happenstance that data has been collected. So it shows that people are bringing him information. It's not like aggressively being sourced, hypothetically. So, to someone that is new to the topic, this may seem like kind of a bigger win. To someone like me, it seemed like a bit of a win, just that they were even talking about this. And let's also consider the fact that there is an emerging threat with actual UAP in the air, and that is discussion. And that's important, but bring it down to UFO, that's the discussion I didn't see them really talking about. They were talking about potential hazards that they are trying to document and prove as a UAP. Through the DoD's release of the videos and things like that, I think they're saying that those are UAP, that they are considering potential hazards. And that's fair, and they're potentially mundane, right? But they're not talking about UFO. Let's be very clear, as Dave has been saying since day one.
I want to claim a timeout here because Tim,
is this an "I told you so" moment?
No. Are we actually seeing you with a change of heart here? Because you're a staunch UAP guy. You are a very staunch UAP guy.
As far as provability, I think it's easier to prove UAP than UFO. Absolutely. Because UFO and UAP don't move the same. Like, I can photograph UAP all day.
What?
No problem. But UFO is something else. You know this. Come on. UFO, if it is from somewhere else, I believe that's possible. It's the most elusive thing to prove because it doesn't move in any way like traditional physics shows us, right? I mean, I think we can all agree that if it's coming from somewhere else, it's not using the same physics potentially. And I mean, you get great footage of stuff all day. You don't know exactly what it is, right? You use generation 2 or 3 night vision, Melinda. So
no, I'm just
Melinda, just one sec. Part of the conversation we had a little bit earlier before you arrived was that there was a lot of UAP talk during this hearing today. There wasn't a lot of UFO talk.
Right.
And to me, and Tim has been, and I have debated this along with Random Guy, and I have debated this for the last couple of months, literally since the beginning of the year, about that. To me, and this is my opinion, I know it's unpopular within the UFO Twitter world, okay, but there's a huge difference between UAP and UFOs. And I really do believe that after today's hearing, and especially what we learned a few weeks ago with the Chinese balloons, that UAP is man-made and UFOs are still an anomaly. Your hair looks great.
I'm just making me sorry.
Please, no, I'd love to hear your response, Melinda, though. I really do value your opinion because you've seen the most out of all of us. You lead tours that successfully capture unknowns almost every time you go out. So please take the floor on how you feel on my statement.
We had fantastic signs tonight. No. My thing is, I don't know. To me, UFO and UAP was just the government's new term to get away from the negative stigma and the ridicule. You know, and that they're the same thing. So I'm like, what's all this differential thing? I feel like it's just to get away from the negative stigma. One thing I felt interesting in the hearing today, now per the NDAA, UAP got changed from unidentified aerial phenomena to unidentified anomalous phenomena. And they kept saying unidentified aerial phenomena, forgetting the anomalous phenomena thing. I thought that was kind of a little bit interesting. You guys, I wouldn't get that hung up about it. I think it means the same thing. I felt Kirkpatrick was addressing both because he talked about the real anomalous data versus the stuff they can prove and is that someone else's problem and all that stuff. So it's like, I felt that that's not a problem I had today. I felt it was addressed and I think he was addressing the real anomalous stuff. He even talked about the extraterrestrial stuff, you know, that came up. So it's like, I think it's just, you know, I even keep telling my clients that UAP is just the term to replace UFO because of them trying to get away from the negative stigma. I don't think it's one thing versus the other at all. I mean, yes, I have no problem with saying that UFO has incredible bad stigma associated with it. You know, it's got a very bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, and it causes so much ridicule and everything. You know, it's like, you know, so whatever. I don't have a problem with that, and I think it is the same thing. And a sighting is a sighting, and it's about determining, okay, are you seeing something anomalous or otherworldly? Are you seeing something that's advanced human technology? Are you seeing something that is prosaic and have other explanations? I mean, you have to go through all of that with any determination, even on the tour. There's no assumption that we're seeing anything. It's, what is it doing? And when you get an object going along that suddenly streaks out, you go, okay, nothing goes do zip, and we saw that tonight. So you go, okay, that's obviously, we have to light giant candles under stuff and go and push stuff out of our atmosphere using very, traditional technology. We don't have the ability to just suddenly boom and go out the atmosphere like that. So when we see that, it's like, okay, we're seeing something else. So it's like that. You got to look at all the data and analyze it. And it's like, anyways, that's all. You guys, I get hung up on the term. I think the government, just to get away from the negative stigma, was using UFO and it UAP, and it means the same thing. I didn't see any stipulation today as to one meant one and one meant the other. I felt that's the one place I didn't have any problem with, is I did feel he was addressing all the various types of things that can happen.
All right. But no, and I can appreciate that. We could agree to disagree on that. That's what good conversation is all about. And Melinda, the idea though, actually random guy, the idea though that, we got about 3 minutes to go here before we go to break at the bottom of the hour, that putting it all together, we look at this as many are, but there was nothing there. There may have been little small tidbits and filing down of information, but realistically, there was no true, Kmart blue light special that was going to light up, the public or anything.
Yeah.
We all expected it, but we still hate it when it happens, man.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's see, I live my life a different way. I live by the saying, under promise and over deliver. And I feel like in ufology, they do the opposite. They get us all riled up and they get us ready to get some answers, and then they under deliver on it. So I always try to manage those expectations. I know I'm sarcastic, and I know I can be cynical and negative, and people don't like it. But if you take the random guy approach, you'll never be disappointed. You'll only be impressed when something good actually happens.
Well, that's why you got the Astro Boy haircut, But Tim Seanor,
Gotta go for the haircut every time.
Always. Tim Seanor, we bring you back in here with 2 minutes to go here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Overall, it's a nothing burger. There really isn't a lot of juice. It's an empty cup. At least that's the way I feel about it. And it wasn't tense, as we talked about earlier. People want answers, and sometimes you hope for those answers, whatever they may be. And yet, how many more of these meetings do we have to sit through before we finally get some direction of where we're actually going? Because it just seems like one conundrum after another.
So I think this was leaps and bounds better than the first one. And I'm thinking that the next one is going to be leaps and bounds better than this one. Only because, it really was better. And so maybe we're seeing progress. We know that the people involved are attempting to be transparent, or whatever their version of transparency is, by showing their work and even releasing the videos that, they're doing some research on. But that just definitely kind of redefines my point that I made earlier, that they're really researching the fact that some of the things that are in our aerospace are of concern, but it's nothing to do with ET. And the conversation that they're having is ruling out ET. And they really want to rule it out and focus on something else. Their focus isn't on ET like our conversation is. So their focus I think, is why you're going to remain frustrated with everything you see coming from this source. If you're looking for disclosure, you're going to be disappointed. You know what I mean?
Love
I
it.
think-
Love
I
it. I love it.
think
Melinda, I'm
that's-
going to get you to hold on right there. We are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour, and we're going to continue with Melinda Leslie, Random Guy, and Tim Seanor till the top of the hour about today's hearings in Washington, D.C. regarding the UFO UAP subject. Where do you stand on it? Do you feel transparency is there or not? We'll return on Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, we're clear. Good times, people.
Yeah. I love hanging with you guys. It's so great to see you, Melinda. I know you're so busy. It's really cool to see you.
That's all. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Good to see
I
you.
miss your energy.
Hey, Melinda, you know, when we get to Vegas, because all four of us will be in Las Vegas, May
Yay.
19th, 21st.
Party on.
Yeah.
Make sure you ask Random Guy about his aliens. Random
Okay.
Guy's got aliens.
Okay.
Yes, he
Did I
does.
tell you? You ignored my text this morning, Dave, about the tones.
No, I meant
So
to
I've been,
ask-
I've been waking up to a doorbell sound this morning, 4 a.m. Again, I usually fall asleep around 2 or 3. 4 a.m. Doom, doom, doom. It was 3 tones, and I was like, Dave. Like, I woke up literally from a dead sleep, and I'm like, this is Dave. And I went to bed last night, and I said out loud, because I was talking to Nicole, and she said, dude, just tell them not to mess with you, like, out loud. So I literally felt like an idiot, and I'm like, hey, guys, I'm really tired. Can you just leave me alone? Like, I said it out just to be silly. And I go to bed, and then, like, 4 a.m., doom, doom, doom. And it was like the Close Encounters tones. And I was just like, dude, I'm so over this. Like, I got to either stop going on the show or something. I don't know what's going on, man. You guys are haunting me with this crap. Like,
Yeah, blame
Nothing you
Dave.
can do.
What do you want to tell me, Random Guy?
F you, Dave.
Oh,
Thank you.
See, I'm not
Well,
going to cuss on the show, unlike some people.
I'm going to tell you. I'm just looking.
I said one word. I'm sorry.
Naughty.
Dave, I'm sorry I said the word.
You just cost me work.
No,
did
Dave.
No.
Dave and I had a conversation earlier.
Were
He
you
said, hey,
able to, is there a delay where you're able to go eat, you know?
No, I'll edit it after the show. You know what?
Okay,
You know
I'm
what-
sorry, just one word, but I
it
apologize.
was either you or Andrew Dice Clay on the show tonight, and he goes, Dice Clay would have been cleaner.
That's right. That's
I
exactly
only
right.
said one word once.
I'm just playing.
I just said one word once.
I know.
It only-
You know what? Random Guy, getting back to your tones.
Yes,
a couple
Dave,
years ago,
David.
I had a phone call from my buddy Olaf Phillips at 3:33 in the morning. And when I picked up the phone, he says, it goes click. My phone rang again at 3:33. The phone goes click. I call him back. His phone goes to voicemail. He then calls back at 3:34, and I said, "Yo, what do you want?" And all I hear is doo doo doo, just like that.
Really?
Doo, doo, doo.
It was similar to that when I woke up.
And then all of a sudden, my head was filled with very colorful shapes of 2 bars coming down like antlers and a
Really?
diamond in between. Okay, and I
Hmm.
drew it out. I just can't find the piece of paper right now. Oh, maybe it fell down. Hold on.
Did you get an erection?
Yeah. I was gonna say that's your
Really?
Or
next.
is that just me?
That's
Well,
your
there-
next El Ovni.
There's my
symbol.
next edit right there. But
I was gonna
that's what it looks
We're
like.
not on the air. Knock it off.
And he's seen this before too. We almost did a tattoo of this matching
I will be
tattoo.
getting- I will be getting a tattoo of that. But the next morning, the next morning, Olaf calls me up, and and I pick up the phone, and his first words out of his mouth were, "I didn't call you." I said, what do you mean you didn't tell me? He says, Dave, my phone has no phone calls. And I sent him a screenshot of his phone calls to me from his phone at 3:33, 3:33, and 3:34.
Wow.
So I know the tones.
That's bizarre.
It was freaky, man. It was freaky.
Oh, yeah. They're trying to download you something. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it was like a baud modem from like 1992. I was like,
You're getting a fax.
I was like, are we at 96? Are we at 9,600 bits per second right now? I need to get that gateway. So it's like the
yeah. Jaden, how you doing, man? And President Zaddy, F you, President Zaddy. Yeah, you gave me the old F you, Dave. Yeah.
I mean,
that's the shirt. I'm telling you, that's going to be your next shirt. Is F you, Dave?
Oh,
I started it.
By the way, speaking
do I get to say it as long as we're not on the air?
No.
I'm wearing your. I'm doing you a solid with merch right now. So.
Okay, 10 seconds, guys. 10 seconds. Right. Here we go.
I remember what we were talking about.
We're on to third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott, the lover of all things UFO. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Final half hour for our panel tonight, breaking down what happened during the day today with the UFO report and hearings happening in Washington, D.C. We are joined by Tim Seanor, random guy and researcher experiencer, Melinda Leslie. Now, one of the things that I want to say, Tim, you brought up that we're supposed to get more hearings in June or July with Congressman Tim Burchett really sitting down and getting to it. Now, if you look at Tim Burchett's history regarding this subject, he has been the loudest mouth of them all, and I mean that in a very good way, trying to get true disclosure. He has been very public that this goes back to Roswell, that we need to know, Tim, from Roswell on forward, what are we hiding? Are we hiding the fact that there's crash retrievals? Are we hiding the fact that there has been alien bodies recovered and or contact in the past? What technology have we reverse engineered if this has all gone through? He has been very adamant and about his dislike on the government secrecy of this topic of UFOs. Could this blow up in June? Tim, this is usually where you speak.
Oh, you're talking to me? I thought this was going to Melinda. Yeah, I mean, it definitely could.
I said your name like 3-4 times.
I'm sorry. I thought you were just referring to what I had said before. I apologize, but no. Well, yes, I do feel like this could be massive coming soon. Only because we're kind of seeing, a lot of people were calling the Condon Report 2.0. Are we being set up for them to just blow the UFO topic off and just focus on the mundane aspect? But what I do hope to see is potentially some of the historical data that they can talk about be revealed in the public setting, because then it would show the public that at least it's being discussed as potential for what UAP is. If that's part of the UAP conversation, then they should be including it a little bit clearer with what they're using to reference when they're considering this something real. And if they're looking at Roswell, why, right? And so, it kind of drags in the whole why now that Dave has been talking about for so long also. I think that draws to attention that, maybe we will get some answers when they bring it back to us with Tim Burchett at the helm, because we know that he is absolutely the captain of transparency right now, and perhaps he will ask some of those harder questions in a public forum.
We could see that. And random guy, I'm not sure you're familiar with who Tim Burchett is, but I mean, he has been probably ufology's biggest voice and fan. Now, a lot of people may not agree with him. He's a very Christian Republican, very staunch on his feet. You know, a lot of people don't like his politics, but he doesn't see, when it comes to UFOs and this topic, he doesn't seem to be playing a party line. He seems to be playing this for the people.
Then he has no shot. If you're truly here and you're not affiliated, just like in politics, what I've noticed is in this game of ufology is you got to find the right clique, and you got to get the right super PAC behind you or the right clout. You know, it doesn't matter how smart you are. There's guys that I've come familiar with, like Grant Cameron and all these other people, and I'm like, how come I never heard their names before, but they're so prominent and so respected? And the reason is, if you just do your job, and your job is bringing the truth to the people, most people don't care. People want to see a History Channel special or breaking news on their Instagram. They don't, that's just the nature of people in general. So like, just being good at your job and doing the right thing, unfortunately, you might be an amazing guy. I don't think it's going to get it done. I don't think it's going to bring the right eyes there, because again, I haven't heard of him. Probably not going to move the meter much. We might talk about it. We might talk about what information he gets, and he might be a great asset to the field. But at the end of the day, if you don't align with the right powers that be, you get no mojo.
Melinda, let's get your point.
Well, there's something said before the break about what, and what you just asked, Dave, too, with June. I think, or what I'd like to see in June is witnesses. I think what's going to make the difference here for the public, you know, I always go back to all my clients and what they're catching or not catching, and they're not catching any of it because there's no media attention. But when they do get a little, you know, I know that what will change the meter is to hear from the witnesses. Obviously, from what we just got from Kirkpatrick and the senators, I'm not expecting to hear anything from the witnesses anytime soon. So I'm hoping the other side, the House, and their hearing, that will get witnesses. I think that would be important to Congressman Burchett. I think Congressman Gallagher. I think some of the others, you know, Carson, you know, whatever. So I'm hoping that will get witnesses, because that if they want to listen to their constituents, you know, regarding this subject, they want to hear, you know, if they did a sampling, they would get that people want to hear these witnesses. I have no doubt. So hopefully from the Congress side, we'll get that. That's I'm really hoping, because I think that's what the only thing that will really move the needle. And for people to go, okay, wow, this is real, you know. And when I say witnesses, I mean military and government ones, people involved in programs, certainly the pilots, certainly the guys involved in the nukes situations, etc. You know. But we'll see. I hope Congress will see the need for that, and that's what we'll get from them. And that's okay, because the House can have Kirkpatrick doing his thing. I'm not completely opposed. I have some concerns and some problems, but I mean, I agree with the science part and all that, you know, so maybe there's room for both to go on. And, you know, I heard an interesting thing. I didn't necessarily agree with everything you said today from veteran researcher Steve Bassett on with the guys from Witness Citizen and doing that. And, but one thing he did say that I found interesting, I've known Steve for many, many years, good friends. And again, I didn't agree with everything he said, but he was saying the need for you know, for the witnesses, and saying that there may be, this was one very interesting that he said, there may be a competition between the Senate and the House over this subject. I think that would be very healthy if there is. If the House is like, oh, we're, the Senate's doing this and we think we should go this way, in the House, different branch of government says we should do this. And so I think if there is competition for attention in the House versus the Senate on this subject, and who's bringing you disclosure, I think we could really benefit from that. So I'm hoping actually that's the case, that Steve bringing that up, I hope he's accurate, that there is a competition, and then we could get this kind of competitive who's bringing you the information, which could push the whole thing forward. I hope he's right on that. I really do.
We keep hearing about the science of everything, the science of UAP, the science of UFOs. We hear scientists, we bring scientists on this show to discuss, and it's all about what the trajectories are, the speed, what are they made of, everything along those lines, Tim. Yet we're not seeming to gain any science on this. We hear a lot of talk about it, but we're not gaining anything. And in the meantime, we're seeing many more people, including Kirkpatrick today, say to experiencers and those who have witnessed things that if you're not part of a military branch, you're not a pilot, you're not a professional eyewitness to what's going on in the sky, we don't want you. We don't need you. Step to the side. Let us pros deal with everything. That's part of what I got out of it too, was that this was another backhand to the experiencer community who just wants to know what they saw.
Yeah, I think that absolutely we're seeing them picking and choosing exactly what they want to cover when they're talking about this. And I think it brings up the fact that they were pretty vocal about entering the Wilson Davis documents into congressional history, but it's gone completely silent how they're handling it. The historical aspect that was demanded, but they've gone completely silent as to how they're handling that. And I'm assuming a lot of that's discussed behind closed doors, but that also leads to the reverse engineering question that is ultimately a really hard question to ask. And so, of course, that slips behind closed doors. And so, like I was kind of wanting to say, that they pick and choose the examples that they use to show their example of UAP, right? And so Kirkpatrick was pretty clear that the only data that he had was stuff that he had run into by happenstance. And I'm assuming that means he's being hand-fed certain information. And I'm sure the information potentially already had been gleaned on exactly what it was, because they came out with the result publicly at the same time as delivering the video. So it's not even up to the public to decide at this point what it is. They were very clear. And so I kind of feel like we may see that as a very focused narrative for them, that yes, Kirkpatrick is working really hard on the science and the data, but the evidence that he's getting is very specific to the narrative that they're trying to come to a conclusion on.
I agree. What about the 600 cases, Melinda?
Yes. What about them?
Now, apparently there was about 150.
I had to shake my finger for a moment on Nicole. She was distracting me. By being very funny.
Adorable.
Okay. So what about the 650 cases? Yeah, they said they prioritized half of them. They're working on half of them, but they feel what they come back with 5% being anomalous or something. Anyways, but I found that interesting. It was a huge jump from before. So I think that's a good sign. But see, again, the data is so skewed. They're only going after their cases from their bases, from their stuff. That was so obvious in this. It's like, this doesn't represent anything except for the limited database you're going for. It's not a representation of the subject.
Well, this is my follow-up question to you regarding this, because I agree with you 100%. We also heard him say, like I just mentioned, to Tim, sorry, our resident Timbit. I'm still flustered by the chat room conversation here.
I'll call you Tweet now. That's okay.
Yeah. But the idea behind it all is, like many people have stated recently, experiencers need to get out of the way. Kirkpatrick basically said that today as well, that we don't want experiencers. We need to let the pros do the pros job, and people who have had a UFO sighting or interaction with something just need to back off a little bit. That's not healthy. If in one sentence you're asking people to back off if they've seen anything, let the pros do their thing, and in the meantime you're saying on the other side of your mouth, we need the public to report their places to reporting sites that they approve of. So, where are we going? You can't have it both ways.
No, you can't, and it's a problem. And I felt today as an experiencer when it was done. I know it's not time to go there yet. So part of me is like, I'm caught between going, okay, it's not time for them to go there and everything. But at the same time, I felt like, it's not being addressed. But I also felt like, okay, maybe this was a wake-up call. And every time these guys go forward in these tiny little increments, it may be a wake-up call for ufology to go, okay, here's what's not being addressed, and we need to pick up the slack. So it's like, I think ufology needs to stop following these guys and going, what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? And always being a step behind them. Let's get out ahead of them and say, no, this is what you guys need to be doing, and get out ahead of them. So let's address the crash retrievals. Let's address the witnesses. I say to all those witnesses, if you're part of the 24 guys who've met with Kirkpatrick, have you signed NDAs, or is there any reason under the sun that you can't come out and talk to ufology about what you told them? Why are we waiting for them to tell us what the witnesses say? Why don't the witnesses tell us? Why don't the witnesses get on the news and say, this is what we told them? Unless there's an agreement to specifically not do that.
NDAs.
But I want those witnesses to then tell us, I'm under agreement not to do that till a certain time. But when that date comes and they haven't had you testify, you need to be in front of the news that day. Because you guys, we need to get out in front of this and not wait. Why are we keep responding to these people? I felt today like we need to get out in front, and then to the experiencers out there. And I'm going to mean the abductees and the contactees, because now experiencer's been bastardized, and it means all this other stuff. It means all these other terms, because
For sure.
With the sighting and everything. And originally in this community, it meant those who had direct contact experience. So in a physical sense, in an abduction sense. So let's say that everyone who, don't be your own worst enemy, and shrink back because ufology is not giving you the time or attention. You need to speak up, and I encourage everyone out there with direct contact to speak up and to let your story be heard. I won't get into specifics, and don't do that, because that's not helping either. Okay.
No, but the guys you're calling out, they definitely have situations where they can only speak, because here's the thing, they're allowed to whistleblow and violate their NDAs only in that hearing in those closed doors, because all the information and data they give gets scrubbed through national security first. That's why they don't talk. That's why they don't talk directly to you guys.
To that today, he did say today, I have a bunch of notes in front of me regarding specifically that stuff. He did say we're trying to get the approval and the authority for them to be able to speak and stuff. He did say that, so I felt like he was trying to come forward with them, or had plans to. And then I heard Gillibrand say, I'm going to make sure that happens, so we're able to do that. So I did catch that part, and I thought that was one positive thing that did happen for sure. But I guess what I'm saying here is, maybe if you're, if you're someone that needs that approval to be covered legally, then by all means. But if you're someone with some stuff that is either A, willing to risk it, or B, not needing to you need that legal protection, then let's hear from you. We've certainly heard from Salas and Jacobs before, and so some of these folks for sure.
Well,
Gary
the problem
Nolan.
is they're going to risk Leavenworth.
No, I'm saying we already have heard from a bunch of them. So, but I want to speak again to the experiencers. It's like to the abductees, contactees. We need to hear from you. Ufology is not giving attention. A major event where I've been asked to speak, didn't want to hear from people with those experiences, and I'm like, wait a second, this is a major UFO event, and you don't want to hear that? It's why they're here. It's why the ETs are here. And if you're not addressing that, we're like missing why they're here. We're missing the whole ET part of the equation. It's like, you guys, no, don't do that. Don't exclude within the field. I get the government game. I understand the game. I sound like probably random guy that I don't, but I do. I do in many, many ways. I just get really passionate and I get frustrated and say, but see, I'm not someone who's outspoken. I'd be someone who risks stuff. That's who I am. And I realize other people can't do that. But if you're out there and you can risk, and certainly if you've had contact, stand up and be counted. The time is now. Personally disclose. Don't wait for the friggin' government. You disclose. Anyways, thank you. I'll put my soapbox away again.
Oh, we love it. Tim Seanor, I'm going to give you the last word of the night, because in the end, activism and people like you, Melinda, myself, other shows out there on YouTube or podcasts, we need to keep pushing. We need to keep that activism going for the benefit of not only the public, but transparency.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm not sure if there's a question in there, Dave, but I 100% am a supporter of transparency and independent research. And for people that really want to know and have that urge for the truth, I recommend getting a piece of technology or something, or just go outside with binoculars and just experience it for yourself. If you keep looking up, eventually, you'll see something. It's just one of those things, and I think Melinda will probably agree.
Absolutely. And I want to say, panel, Random Guy, Melinda Leslie, Tim Seanor, thank you so much for rounding out our panel here in hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio, as we look to wrap things up for the night on a very interesting and intriguing night when it comes to everything UFOs and ufology. It's been a great night. We also say thank you to the Science Bob McGwier, Louis Borges from UAP Studies Podcast, Bob Spearing of MUFON, and Dan Warren as well. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns out for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, Space Travelers Club, LinkedIn, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Blue Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. Once again, I'm going to pat us on the back. We had the best panel out there today on this.
Yeah.
Best out there. We did. Totally.
No bias. No bias. Just facts only.
Truth. It's both. It's both. It really is, man. Pretty excited about that. That was a good show. Very good show.
I'm going to need Melinda's number next time I need to call customer service. I'm going to three-way with her.
Yeah.
Have her handle that call for me.
Yeah, but I can't be a Karen in those situations. I'll be a Karen, but not in that situation.
Hey, Melinda, if we ever start a podcast, we'll call it UFO Karen.
UFO Karen, yeah.
Oh.
Now, those people really annoy me. I'm not a complainer, except for in ufology. And I've earned a right to complain.
Melinda, I will say this. I cannot wait to give you a big hug in Vegas. And if anybody ever gets a chance to give Melinda,
I love those pictures of you and me at Lorienne's conference. I love those.
And you know what? For anybody out there, if you get to give Melinda Leslie a hug, it's a true hug. It's not just a quick, oh, how are you? No. She's a hugger. I love it. I love you so much, my dear.
I love you. And that's like I said, I love those pictures at the conference because you and I are looking so cute.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
I
think there was a plate of fries shared at one point.
Some woo in here?
All right. Plate of fries?
Plate of fries
shared. It was ice cream with 2 spoons.
Random guy, what's going on with you and Nicole in here? What's up with that, man?
Steamy.
I'm putting in my work. I'm trying to. Oh, I'm not gonna lie. I'm trying to land her.
Melinda, what do you think? And I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be listening to you because Nicole is cracking me up.
I'm using the woo. You guys are teaching me the ways of the woo.
The ways of the woo.
It's
gonna.
You really want to learn you gotta take my psychokinesis spoon bending class, man. That's
okay.
serious.
If it lands me Nicole, we're in. I'm just joking.
Yeah, we're all I'm saying is that I'm gonna walk Nicole down the aisle, and Tim's gonna be our flower girl.
Oh man,
it's gonna be crazy. We've already planned all this. We've already planned all this in our heads. Nicole doesn't know yet, but
Nicole doesn't know yet.
We're filling her in on the details as we go.
We're just supposed to.
She might know.
She might know.
There's
maybe.
It's
a small chance. It's a small chance this is all staged.
Yeah, much like Kirkpatrick and Gillibrand right now.
No, that it was okay. I started to say before we went out the air when you were saying, "Oh, it was an interesting day," blah blah blah. I was trying to say historic, because it was first time we had Senate hearings in 50 years on this subject.
Well, I'm not saying it's not historic. I'm not saying it's not historic, but
look what happened the last time.
It's frustrating as slow as it is. Someone else said, I can't remember who said this on Twitter. Somebody said, or in a podcast, I forget who said, disclosure at the speed of government, but I want to give them full credit. So if someone knows out there, tell me or text me, disclosure at the speed of government. That's what we're getting.
And the fact that it's been 50 years just goes to show you how quickly the public forgets how the government handles something like this, because it's exactly the same.
Oh, it is, yeah.
So we can predict the outcome of this, but it's still fun to be, watching and a part of. And it is fun to see people squirm on this topic. It was an interesting day, one of those few times that you're actually interested in what's going on.
We're not on, right, Dave? Yes, I can say pissed off. Kirkpatrick looked really pissed off.
He's actually editing out your curse word right now.
Yeah.
No, not right now. In a couple minutes.
Oh, okay.
But Kirkpatrick was really...
He's got that look.
And Gillibrand. I thought Gillibrand and Kirkpatrick both... I don't know what happened in the hour, the closed door session before us. I mean, before the public one. but they both came in there like they were pissed off.
I see what I saw was like this kind of like shell-shocked look where it was just kind of like, at this point, we're just going to get through this. And it almost felt like they had come to the recollection that nobody has a clue, and they're just like, oh man, this is going to be a massive job. And how are we going to handle it is what it
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think, and Kirkpatrick sounded frustrated, and and Gillibrand maybe didn't want to upset him or push it, so she dialed it back, or there was a lot of politics at play, and I guess I'm okay with that. As frustrating as it was, but
I do feel that there were some important pressing questions that took place behind closed doors, and the realization of some of that information probably flowed into the acceptance of the easy softball questions that came publicly. Because Gillibrand was obviously pretty okay with that. There was no struggle for her to want to talk about something else. It was very clear. But we don't know
what happened in the closed doors, so maybe something happened that caused some tension between them, and they wanted to back it way off in the live one. I remember the public one. It's kind of feeling I got.
And if we saw those two videos publicly and they were like, this is not anything of interest, but here's what we're looking at.
We got out of it. Now, Dave, I figured when I came on an hour late, you guys had probably covered that. I thought one of the good things we got out of it was a new piece of footage that was like the Mosul one. Well, one of them turned out was an example of
but it's still information that that's what they're looking at.
For him to say this is highly anomalous, we don't know what this is, and it was very clear, I thought, and it was so similar to the Mosul picture, but was a whole video and not from the same incident. I said, wait a second, that has value. That was a good piece, and I appreciate that. I think Kirkpatrick was trying to release something, like trying to say, I know the public wants this, I'll at least give the dog this bone.
Especially considering that the Navy just sealed up all of their new information, right? It's nice to have a piece of video that isn't sourced from somebody from the public. So I thought it was great.
No, we want more. We know there's better, but at least it was something. And I felt like it was Kirkpatrick trying to give us something, which I appreciated.
I agree.
What do you guys think?
And so I appreciated that.
What did you think about the fact that they had another Iraq orb unrelated to the Mosul orb?
That's what we were just saying. We think it's awesome.
That's what we're just talking about.
You are totally just talking to Nicole. He's buried in chat.
You're missing.
About that for a couple of minutes.
No, you're not.
Kidding. Go ahead.
No. Okay. Do you want my input or you don't?
I was just busting your chops.
So here's my question.
Go ahead.
So supposedly that was a Predator drone, right? RQ-9, right?
Yeah.
Or no, so that's a Reaper. RQ-9's a Reaper, not a Predator. So that particular drone has a camera on it. So it's got EO, IR, all that regular crap. Those drones, the Reaper drones, have a different camera system on it. It's called, what the frick is it called? A Gorgon or something like that.
Gorgon.
There's another. Yeah. So what that can do is it can take a picture of like 15 square miles at the same time.
Totally.
So I'm wondering, you know what I'm talking about, Timmy?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so I'm wondering why are we watching the single EO camera tracking and not getting overlays? Because it would have been filming at the same time.
Yeah. Great point.
This is just knowing what the aircraft is and what it's capable of. So there's other stuff to that they're not releasing that would give more insight, is what my point is.
Quick answer to that is for the same reason that the rest of the data was put together in a set of graphics that I could have done working in my executive assistant positions 30 years ago. I said on Twitter, when someone said, oh, look, they gave us data, I said, yeah, I presented better stuff to executives 30 years ago that I did using basic software available 30 years ago. It's like, and so for the same reason, I think that a lot of the data was weak.
We got random guy. We got Tim Seanor. All right, go ahead.
So then, so for that reason, I think, we got a lot of weak stuff, but at least it was a new piece of footage. That's what I'm saying. It was like, at least, throwing us something, I'm trying to find good stuff that came out of this.
Who's that Navy guy earlier? Day or whatever?
More importantly, poll numbers right now have dropped where it's 69% yes, 31%.
69, yes.
So could Nicole accept random guy's offer for a date?
69 is the number I wanted.
Of course.
Did you guys see the thing on the screen too? Joe Monk said David Politi said the whole 411 episode is about the last guy that Nicole dated.
Oh Jesus! What are you getting me into here, Dave?
You
told me she was a nice girl.
Well, you met her friends,
Nicole.
didn't you?
Oh boy!
Wow!
Oh boy! Whoa!
Melinda,
I got to know what the story is now.
What's in that bottle, Melinda?
Holy crap! I thought I was the only one drinking half a bottle of tequila tonight.
That is so much fun.
Unfortunately, it's just apple juice.
Oh, wow!
I know nothing.
Indeed.
Oh, we're back up to 70%. Back up to 70%.
I mean, let's face it. She can't really do much better at this point. She's middle-aged. Might as well settle.
Wow.
Ow.
Brutal.
Wow.
People get married in their 90s. Stop it.
I'm joking.
Not a compliment. Hey, so actually, RG, I never got input from you on that second video, the one that was questionable from the DoD, the one that looks similar to the Mosul orb. Do you have any theories on that?
As far as what?
Let's assume it's legitimate. Obviously, it's released by DoD.
For a second here because I have to make the famous Melinda edit. Hold on.
Come half the subjects for the NDA.
Save the thought. Tim,
and some that were giving just lip service, like the witness stuff. Oh, thanks for sending me the witnesses. Why didn't the senators come back and say, what do you feel their data about? Excuse me.
It's coming up after the coughing.
On a website. And she said, oh, so is that up and running? And he said, no. Well, how far along are they on it? She didn't know. No one had briefed her in 5 months. Wasn't it before all that? What was going on the website? Was there a place for people to report? And Kirkpatrick then goes, I don't know how far along they are. It's like, dude, this is how people are supposed to report to you. And it showed me two things. One is he's only doing the things he's interested in, A, and B, it showed me he could give a shit about witnesses. Oh, there we go.
There it is.
And about the witnesses. It showed me he could give a shit about witnesses. Give a shit about witnesses. I got caught up. I'm sorry, Dave. I got caught up. I wasn't thinking. I forgot where I was. He could give about witnesses.
There we go. Got it. All right. All good. You're in the clear again, my dear. You're in the clear.
So I was wondering, and we can start with RG, but I'm definitely curious, Melinda. RG, what's your first take on what we were looking at in that video there, released by the DoD? Obviously, one of them was an airplane, and they confirmed that, but the other one was an orb, similar to the Mosul orb that we were talking about.
Yes, you mean identical to the Mosul orb in most ways.
Yep.
Would you agree?
Yeah, visually, absolutely. But we got video, so we got to see it move. A lot more information this time. So,
right.
Please give me your professional input on what you think that was.
It is a It's a reconnaissance thing. It's not, in my opinion. Hold on. I need to back this down. I'm speculating here.
Oh, okay.
It's a reconnaissance orb, aka a drone that is powered by other means. That's my opinion. I don't think it's out of this world. I think it's something that somebody might have. And I'm only talking on it because it's on video. That's all I'm going to say. But
So
I have high belief and probability that it is something that collects data over battlefields.
Okay, let me just leapfrog on that. So that expresses technology that we don't normally have. Do you think that there's any chance that they would follow up with information on something like that?
I think that let's do some sci-fi here that helps my explanation. Okay. So sci-fi, science fiction. If you had an intelligence gathering agency and they had technology that was not known to the operational combat units in its own, but they wanted to gather their own human, real world, real time information from a battlefield, a hot place, or just regular ass spying, would it be better to tell everybody what it was, or would you just go in and conduct your mission? This is sci-fi. It's not real.
Okay.
Because again, as we've talked earlier today, I didn't even say it, but I believe they are correct. A lot of these agencies don't like to play nice with each other. Everybody wants to be first. Nobody wants to hand something off and have somebody else solve the problem before their team does. There's egos, and there's all kinds of reasons. All kinds of reasons. Even if it's just, operational security, OPSEC.
Okay, then why was
hypothetically,
it publicly? I guess why would they?
Because I don't think that one hand knows what the other hand. The same way that fighter pilots are seeing certain things and they're credible, trained observers, and 100% I believe them. I don't think they know everything that's out there because we play with toys that aren't briefed. And it doesn't matter if you're TS, SCI, whatever, if it's not in your privy. And in fact, I know for a fact, we test some things intentionally against active duty to see how they react to it and pick it up and how they log it, encounter it, engage it before we try it out on our adversaries.
Okay, so release of these videos and their conclusion on them, is that then considered a success for Arrow because this is what they're set up to do, is for this kind of information?
That lends to me. I think Arrow and the dude that was talking today and everything, I don't think he's necessarily actively hiding UFOs. I think he's doing a good job, and I think like I said earlier, by presenting the scientific method and giving 5 steps, and you take 2 teams, so you can't have bias in your discovery and you can't have bias in your research. I think they really are doing their job. The only little caveat to that is I don't think they're getting all the data. But here's the reason I'm okay with it, because I think the data that's being omitted is our stuff.
So they're cherry picking the data that's being fed to Arrow?
But what about the historical data, like craft retrievals and stuff that they've been asked to do in the NDAA, and they're not looking into that?
I can't speak on everything individually. I'm giving a generalized opinion here, based on how things work. I don't think everybody knows everything that's going on, and so on one hand you could say, okay, Arrow's doing their job. On the other hand, you could say it's probably a waste of time, because unless we have aliens, it's literally just wasting our time. And I think we don't have aliens. I think we have proof of aliens, maybe a little bit somewhere, but I think I think they don't know what the hell it is, and they're not letting it out. I think it's in one of those private warehouses or in one of those little concealed labs. And I don't think it's going to ever make its way to a committee or the DOD.
It's gone to aerospace companies.
The problem with aerospace companies is publicly traded companies have more scrutiny. You need startup companies that hide stuff till they get too big, then they make another new company, and then they move it. That's how these things work in Black Ops world. Make a company, once it gets too big, gets close to $1 billion, you got to move it to a different company because now it has scrutiny. You definitely can't do it with a public traded company. Like most of the aerospace companies are publicly traded, right? Shareholders.
Yeah, but there's so much information that some stuff went to them, at least up until the 2000s.
I'm not saying it didn't altogether. I'm saying to spearhead this stuff or to possess it Like they could have gone to any aerospace company and said, "Hey, bring us your biggest and brightest, sign this shit, and check it out." And they could have done that, but they're not going to let them hold on to it and just continue to experiment with it. It's going to be a very, very small,
maybe to
private corporation.
They already have it buried there, and by leaving it there, it remains buried because of the security that's in place there.
I mean, you could say that, but I've been to a lot of facilities, both aerospace, government, military. I've been to these things and I've seen how it works. It would be so hard with turnover for no one ever to say anything. It's beyond the realm. There's a thing where it's like we can keep a secret if one of us is dead, kind of thing. At some point, you get 50 to 100 people involved. Someone's going to say something, even if it's an accident, a rumor. It's going to point in the right direction, and we're not getting that.
Not necessarily, because some people I know in some of these programs, and what they've told me, I've had guys break down in tears and absolutely shaking to their core, saying, "You understand? They will absolutely kill my children and my grandchildren." Like they actually believe their family members and their grandchildren will be killed.
What's the benefit of killing your grandchildren if you are the one telling
because
they're not going to do that.
Keep you from talking.
Yeah, that's that old MIB BS. It's not going to happen.
No, you understand.
It might have happened.
You understand.
It might have happened 80 years ago.
I've had guys sobbing their head off to me.
They might believe that, but that's not how it works.
That's all if they believe it, they keep the secret.
Right. I get it. That's fine.
That's my point. If they believe it, they keep the secret.
Our government doesn't do business like that anymore.
Some people did die in the process, so to make it believable. That happened in Roswell. That happens out with 51 and S4.
I think up until 1996, I think that's a plausible explanation. I think the entire paradigm shifted in the late 90s after Clinton and some of the things that came out, and they decided to redesign the process of how they handle it.
Maybe that's why we're actually starting to get some disclosure. A slow pace.
Pre-1996, it was pretty much zero oversight.
Maybe
President Clinton actually personally changed a lot of that.
Is why we're starting to get this coming out. Maybe because you're right is why we're starting to get this.
And again, I don't know everything. I'm just going off of what I've seen and heard, just like you. But I just happen to make educated guesses because I've been to a lot of things and I've seen a lot of things. So without being specific, I don't think we operate. And you don't need to operate that way anymore, because all you have to do now is strip someone's livelihood from them, their validity of what they're saying. You don't actually have to kill a man anymore. You can literally just kill his character. Assassinate his worth and its history. You don't have to actually
the layers, and when that failed, it went to these other layers. So
we don't have to drag bodies to the desert anymore to erase a man and ruin his life. They could do that literally electronically or with media.
But they can also still do the other, because I've been told once that fails, they have these other areas. People protect their family members.
I'm never going to say anything because, first of all, I've never seen aliens, but I would never betray. Okay, I've never seen my aliens in a paid capacity. How about that? My point is this: it's like,
hold on,
Dave.
F you, Dave.
Yeah.
And I've been retired now, so I'm good. But I'm just saying, everything that I've seen, even if it was the craziest, wildest stuff in the world, I would never betray my country, because I know what they're doing is keeping my family safe. And because unless you truly believe there's something nefarious going on, you should probably just shut your mouth. And I believe that to my heart, because the government's not perfect. The military is not perfect. It's run by people. But I think ultimately they've done a pretty damn good job. They've done a pretty damn good job of keeping us safe, the last 100 years or so. So I'm going to defer to that until given different data sets.
No, I understand national security and the need for it. I don't have a problem with that, but sometimes they cross that line, and I think information like our place in the universe the existence of extraterrestrials and our relationship with them, and our existence with other dimensions and our relationships with them is all too important, because it's everything about how we are and how we're going to go forward and function in the future and be successful as a human race. So without that information, we will fail. So we have to have that information, or we will fail as a human race.
I don't think they know the truth. I think because they don't know the truth, the small things they do know, they won't disclose.
They absolutely know some of it. I'm a Millab. I've been in underground bases and I've seen stuff they have. They absolutely know some of it. They absolutely know some of it.
Melinda, what happens when you wake up in the middle of the night and you don't know why, but all of a sudden you look at your feet and there's two alien grays standing there? What's the first words that come out of your mouth? Because for random guy, it was "fuck you, Dave."
I definitely saw aliens in my dream. I've never seen aliens working for the government ever in my life. I can attest to
That's
that.
right. You weren't read in at that level, or brought in at that level. That's okay. But other
Very
people.
possible.
What?
Very possible, but my whole thing is it would have to have happened in places.
I have no doubt, Random, you know how the compartmentalization works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you only know what you know because that's what you're part of to know. And if you don't know that, then you don't know.
But if you move around enough, you get a bigger picture of things.
Sure.
So, and they don't like that.
So compartmentalized doesn't mean you're working with the ETs. You got to go through all those levels of clearance to get there.
Like I said, very, very possible I'm wrong. All I'm asking for is the reason I'm here, the reason I had bothered Tim and Dave. I'm here to learn the evidence that I don't have. So I have an open mind. I'm willing to change it.
I appreciate
I just have my experiences, which are valid.
And I can learn how the process of the intelligence community work from people like you and Science Bob, you know.
Yeah, and when you're ready for another experience, hang out with Melinda and go on one of her tours, because you're guaranteed to see something.
On one of my tours yet.
Well, hey, you know what?
Random guy,
go ahead.
But you can have a sighting with me, yes.
Random guy, you're still playing this dream bullshit?
It's a dream.
LOL.
Because I told the aliens point blank, if this is real, bring Nicole here right now. And they couldn't produce her, so I know it's fake.
No, luckily Nicole's protected.
I was like, those flights are expensive, man.
Melinda, do you have a recent sighting that you could share, or maybe an impactful one that you've managed to see with some of your tech?
Oh, excuse me. Oh.
Before we let you go to sleep.
Last night and had to get up at the crack of dawn to watch a Senate hearing at 7 a.m.
Yeah, we all did that.
But when you don't go to bed till 2 and then you didn't sleep well, it gets a little rough. Okay. I mean, we just incredible stuff. I'd have to look when, because I didn't make notation, but let's say about 10 days ago, maybe it's been 2 weeks at the most, but I think it's more like 10 days. We had this really cool sighting on my tour where we had, we get formations of 2, 3, 4, 5 often. We had really fast, I mean, it's going to be hard for me to demonstrate for you guys to see just how fast, but we had a group come in and I had my back to it. I had like 8 people out that night. There was this couple with their 3 kids that were teenagers. I didn't ask the kids their ages, but I would put them at probably like 12, 14, and 16. 16-year-old girl and then 2 younger boys who were clearly about a year or 2 apart. So like, you know, I really think like 12, 14, 16 is probably pretty accurate. And then I had another couple, because I was 5, or another group of 3, another family of 3, I think. Okay. Or a couple plus their friends, something like that. Okay. But I had my back to him, and it was late in the evening, and I start telling stories. People ask me questions, whatever. And all of a sudden, no, I say don't expect to see structure craft. I talk about that in the beginning, and I talk about the different structure craft we've seen, which like we've seen triangles 9 times on my tours. And so all of a sudden I hear the dad go, oh my God. And his son point out, he goes, look, one of the teenage kids points out first, and the dad is going, oh my God, it struck. And I go, what? My back's to him. And I don't realize what he's trying to say because he's getting really tongue tied. He goes, it's a try, it's a struck, and he's trying to say structured craft triangle. And I go, what? And I turn around. And I go, wait, are you seeing a triangle? And I whipped around real quick when I realized that's what he was trying to say. And all of a sudden, this group of lights broke apart and moved apart from each other. And I go, no, because he later told me they were close together, looking like a triangle. But it turns out as soon as I turned around, this grouping split up and moved apart. So I said, no, not a triangle formation, a formation. And then they came back together in kind of a clump, and the whole time they were literally going this fast, like the end of my finger. The camera won't even keep up with me. It was like that, literally that fast.
Wow.
And they pull apart, and then, like I said, they came back together, but then all of a sudden, and they were still going that fast, so they were like going that fast.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, and quoting one of the kids, one of the teenage boys, he said, like the 14-year-old, I think, he said, they took off like a starburst, like they all went different directions from each other and streaked out. Well, wait a second, they're all going fast this way, and all of a sudden everything takes off different directions. It means half of those things had to make hard right angle turns, because they're just like, shoo, and it literally was like group, apart, group, and then apart like a starburst where they streaked out in opposite directions from each other.
Wow. And was that with Generation 2?
How many things did you see? And everyone agreed it was well over 15, probably about 20 things. So it was like 20 things in a formation. It was
and you're using night vision.
That was with night vision because they were up really high. And it was late in the tour. It was very, very high, but just how fast they were going, that they moved apart, came together, and then streaked out in opposite directions from each other in a formation of 20. It was just it was a great sighting. It was a great sighting.
And that's in Phoenix, right?
Sedona, Arizona.
Sedona, Arizona. Okay. That is super cool. I love it. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. A couple other times lately, we've had some bigger formations and stuff going really fast. We had this thing happen. I'm trying to remember when this was. Like 3 or 4 months ago. So it was definitely this year. And I'm thinking it was like February or March. This is April. It had to be January or February. That must have been February. Okay. We just saw the craziest thing. Now, no, I take it back. It was last fall. Never mind. It was last fall, because I went and saw Paola Harris's last conference for Star Works last fall, at which she had Jaime Maussan speaking. But it was literally like just before that conference, like a week before it, I think, if I remember. Okay, so we saw this crazy thing where we saw this undulating blue line sweep across the sky, and not sweep like going in like a line like this, but sweep like this, like sideways, Okay. But it was really long and really high altitude, and the whole thing undulated like a snake. Even though it was going like this fast across the sky, it was like that. And one of the gentlemen on the tour said he was looking with the goggles, and he said, Melinda, look at the goggles, because I didn't have goggles in my hands right then. My clients did. And so someone handed me some or something, and I looked, and I'm like, oh my God, And he said, do you see it? And I go, yeah. And it was blue. This whole line was blue. But when you actually looked with the goggles, it was separate objects in a row.
Wow.
You guys, no joke. This was like 100 things in a row. And they were all going slightly different speeds. So it gave the look of, with your naked eye, this blue line undulating a little bit, but it was because all the objects were going slightly different speeds. And we're like, whoa, and they were doing that. And then all of a sudden, so it swept across the sky really fast doing this undulating because the objects were like this, like slightly different speeds. All of a sudden it gets to about here in the sky, so like 45-degree angle, and then just winks out at once.
Wow.
And it was like, whoa. So at the conference, Jaime gets stuff from people all over the world all the time. I know he's controversial, but he gets great footage from people. And I said, Jaime, I saw him in a hallway like half an hour before he was going to give his lecture presentation. And I said, have you ever got anything like this? Because I have to know if anyone's ever seen this. And I started to tell him about this blue line, everything about it. And then it disappears. It's like 100 things. He goes, are you going to be in my presentation about half hour? I go, yeah. He goes, come to my presentation. He ended up showing different blue objects in videos. Now, a few of the things he saw, it's a long story. I don't want to go into it, but I think they were something else. And I think he realizes that too. Like there was some searchlight stuff in there. But there were a couple pieces of video, like 4 or 5 pieces that were like exactly what we saw, with this blue line going like this. And afterwards, I went up to him and he goes, was that like what you saw? And I go, oh my God. I said, I was wondering if you'd ever heard of anything like this or gotten anything. And you just showed me multiple videos of the same thing. So he's had people send him videos of the same thing that we saw over Sedona.
And actually, that kind of brings up a question I've had for you for a while. Do you always see different things, or do you see repeated things? Is there a part of the sky that you always see things, or is there anything?
So much repeat. Like a thing that I've become really aware of is objects moving high up that, a lot of people might go satellites and look away, except for I've done a lot of research and taken on a lot of satellite experts to learn like how to know and what to look for and blah, 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 blah. There's not as many satellites as people think. Most of them are higher up and there's a restriction to how they can move. And, so once something does something a satellite clearly can't do. Okay. But one thing we'll get these things that start to, as they head out, they start to pick up speed. And we get things that start moving so fast as when I said head out, they're like getting smaller and dimmer. And they'll so pick up speed. And a lot of times right as they disappear, they'll streak or they'll suddenly make a hard turn. And we're getting more of that. But I don't think it's that we're getting more of them. I think I'm better about explaining it and better at training my clients how to look for this stuff. That I say when something is dimming and when it's leaving the atmosphere, don't look away because we get these things that streak out and stuff. And
RG,
so that seems like something we're getting more of, but I think it's just because I'm getting better about training people to look for it.
That's awesome. And my question in reference to that would be, RG, do you know if we have anything like satellite that can break a trajectory typically? Are you aware of anything that can do anything unexpected?
I know the answer to that because
please.
Satellites and how they work. I mean, RG can jump in. Yeah. They're released by rocket. They're in a fixed orbit. They're a jagged piece of machinery in a fixed orbit. They have no propulsion system. They have no engines, thrusters, or fuel. They have little satellites on them, but they don't have engines, thrusters, or fuel. They don't have rocket technology on them. Once they're put up by rocket, but the rocket falls away.
Yeah, we'll go with your answer. I can't comment.
Okay, but to have stuff that suddenly takes off out of the atmosphere, like a streak of light. Do we have anything that can leave the atmosphere as a streak of light? If we do, it's called anti-gravity.
Interesting.
Have you ever heard of a TAV?
And if we do, it's reverse engineered anti-gravity, isn't it?
Have you ever heard of a TAV?
A what?
Trans-atmospheric TAV, trans-atmospheric vehicle.
Trans-atmospheric
Well, if we
vehicle.
have that, it's called anti-gravity. Do we have stuff that can come and go from space to our atmosphere without the use of a rocket or any of those things?
There's literally experiments going on all the time about this stuff. So what they do now officially is they
see 100 of them over Sedona every night. I mean, we're seeing so much of this stuff over Sedona. That'd be joyriding it out for the public to see.
I get it. I'm not saying that's what this is. You asked me about technology versus application. It's a different story.
Okay.
And also, aren't you on? You're capturing a lot of this only in certain light spectrums too, right? Is part of my argument when I talk about things that I think are potentially UFO or UAP. It's because I'm only capturing it in a non-visible light spectrum.
Half of what we see each night we can see with our eyes.
Okay.
We're just using military, PVS 7 Gen 3 military night vision that increased light by about 50,000 times. So we're getting this increase in being able to see, like, for instance, we see a lot more stars because we can see that because of the increase in light. You pick an area of the sky, it looks dark to your eyes, maybe 1 or 2 stars. You suddenly put up the night vision and it's solid stars, so we're seeing stuff that's high up, but stuff come and go freely from our atmosphere under its own control, and then we've had, that's totally separate from when we've had full structured craft. We've had fully structured craft 63 times, and RG, 4 of the times we've had structured craft, we've had military jets come in and follow and chase them, and 3 of the times we've had what I call big light, which is something really close, really big, but not close enough to make out all the hard detail and the structure of it, the hard detail. Wow. If we can make out all the hard details, that's what I'm calling structured craft. Like, if it looks like,
awesome.
This in the sky, and so, but otherwise we're getting what I call big light, something really close, but not quite close enough to make out all the hard detail and or too brightly lit up to make out the hard detail. And so 4 times when we've seen full structure, and another 3 times with big light, we've had F-18 military jets come in and follow and or chase them.
Wow. Yeah. Corroboration.
We had this big, in November, great big, and the clients who were out with me that night still text me and call me about it and can't stop talking about it. We had this big amber light come from east to west over us. It was like dime size at arm's length, and here comes a military jet fast in the distance, comes in fairly high up. I don't know, you got to know size to know distance and distance to know size, so it's kind of guesstimating. But this, anyways, long story short, here comes this military jet coming in fast in the distance, comes up, pulls up next to this orange light, and is right next to it and starts accompanying it. Okay. And then we have a glow in the distance, which is Phoenix in the distance. Anyways, so coming up from the south, here comes another plane that, if anything, looked even a little higher up. We see so many planes and military jets and stuff all the time ever since 9/11 and Patriot Act. They're over all major cities. And so here this guy comes in fast and he turns, and we're like, oh, is he seeing this thing? Or has he been sent to, this other pilot called it in, so they sent someone else or whatever. Okay, so he turns and he pulls up right next to the other side of the orange light. So there's one on one side, one on the other, with the orange light, dime-sized orange light in the middle, and both of these are the military jets on either side, and they're totally locked in. And this happened like right over us, and they continue to fly to the west, due west. And they just keep going and going and going. But eventually the orange light winks out. The dime-sized orange light just suddenly goes blip, and it's gone. And the 2 jets are still there, still going to the west. I'm sure they were on comms with each other the whole time, probably, But but just to see the orange light go wink.
And do you use protocol to initiate contact or lasers or anything like that typically?
Well, yeah, we're using we use laser pointers for pointing stuff out. Of course, I cover laser safety, so don't anyone give me a bad time about that. I cover it completely and the laws and everything.
Do you do like CE5 quote unquote or anything?
No, we go out. I explain what you're going to see, not going to see, how to know if it's satellites, drones, planes, helicopters. I cover all that stuff. I talk for like 40 minutes in the beginning, and then, or at least half an hour, and then once it's dark enough, because we meet a little bit before it's dark, so as soon as it's dark enough, we're using the night vision, and everyone gets goggles, and we're seeing all this different stuff that I'm talking about, but that object with the big amber light, that's not with the night vision. Anytime we get color, you only see that with your own eyes. So I always tell people, if we get a great big bright light, lower the goggles, look with your own eyes, because also structure craft is often a color on approach. And we've seen triangles 9 times. We've seen discs 4 times. We've seen structural sphere. We've had boomerangs on 6 tours. We've had oval shapes. We've had diamond-shaped craft on 3 tours. Ovals, like I said, on 6 tours.
What about a
cylinders,
mental?
Cylinder cigar ship on 4 tours.
Have you ever had a mental contact or anything, or download or have any people?
Often I'll get, because often I do readings and stuff here in Sedona too, and often I'll get what I call a psychic hit, a big feeling like pay attention. And tonight we had a couple things, because we flash at things with the laser and they flash back at us. And tonight we had a bunch of things flashing back at us. And I got that big hit beforehand. And then we also had doubles. We had 2 things in unison. We had a double come along that we flashed at the one in the front. It did what we call powered up, got really big and bright. We flashed at the one in the back. It powered up. And then it did a nice big arcing turn, and then as they started to get smaller and dimmer, and I like heading out and away, we flashed at them, and the one in the front flashed again right before they disappeared. But it was nice to have them do this arcing turn and to have them flash back at us. But if that's what you mean, Tim, I can't see you. You're behind the.
I'm hidden, but I'm here.
Yeah.
I just want to jump in real quick and say I gotta go. I gotta make a phone call to another time zone. So I just want to say, Dave, Tim, Melinda, I appreciate it.
Random guy, what do you think of your new logo?
I like it. I love it. You can add that to another one of the shirts you're not going to send me. That'll be great.
Well, you know what? I actually have to resend your order because a couple of them were the random guy ones were canceled. So
yeah, I see how that. Yeah, I'm used to getting canceled. Anyways, I got to run, boys and lady, and I appreciate all the good talk and the fun times with chat, and I love you guys. But random guy has business to conduct.
He's got to go.
You have a life. I have a life too. Luckily, I don't have a client.
My life starts at 1 a.m. though. So, anyways, I appreciate you. I'll see you guys later.
Say hi to Nicole.
Mine finally starts to come to end at about 1 a.m.
Melinda, I cannot wait to see you in person. We're gonna have so much fun.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see you again.
Timmy, if you come out to Sedona, do my tour, see what we're seeing.
I would love to. I'll bring some toys.
Science Bob came out and did it and saw incredible stuff. And who else?
That guy's just magic.
Yeah, Bob's great.
I think the UFOs follow him.
John Ramirez came out, and
cool.
He saw foreign formation with me, and the foreign formation disappeared right over us. 4 big bright lights in a row, going really fast. They went really fast, and then they disappeared right over us.
He's going to be in Vegas too, right, Dave?
That's right. I was just going to say that.
Cool.
Yeah.
He'll be hanging with us.
Going to be there.
Yeah. He saw that with me. Bob saw stuff with me. Yeah.
It's going to be a blast.
Awesome. Guys, I wake up with my little guy tomorrow.
Yes. I didn't mean to stay this late either, but I had fun.
Oh, we love you, Melinda. You always make time. But
I got so worked up tonight. Well, it was because of what happened today, the frustration of it. I got really
yeah. Well, the next plate of fries is on me.
I'm not a big fry person, but I'll take you up on something.
See you in Vegas, Melinda.
You too, Dave. Love you.
Love you, dear.
You too, Tim. I look forward to seeing you guys. We're going to have a blast.
Absolutely.
Timmy, we'll chat with you later, buddy. Give us the old finger thing.
Here it goes. Kick me out.
Boom.
Nothing. Dave's supposed to boot me. He never does it right. I set him up.
Wait, you have to go. Wait, you have to be on the camera.
I mean, when he calls it, he's supposed to do it. When I'm not prepared.
I blew that one. I'm sorry.
You blew it. Here's the finger.
Are
Ready?
we still live? Have we all these people in the chat still? Is that what we've been doing?
We still got them all.
We might actually have people in there. All right,
just
I'm out
say
of
a
here.
big thank you to Lala, Bob, Nancy H ×2, Ed, Ken, Laura, and Philip for the super chats. Melinda,
yes.
I love you, dear.
Love you too. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.